Welcome back to another episode of Present Company Included. As always, my name is TeddyGrizz, and I am joined here by Gleeman and Rhino Rocks.
Hello.
Hello.
Rhino, I believe you chose the video for us to be reacting to today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I did because with Christopher Nolan and Kevin Smith and all of the bad writing that we talk about, we haven't covered Kevin Smith. I just like talking bad about him. I thought we'd take a look at something
You've
that I would,
covered him.
yes,
You've
I've covered
found
him,
ways to cover him.
covered him very thoroughly. Deep, insightful conversations about him. But I figured we'd cover some good writing, or at least what I would consider like good and unique and innovative writing, given the context and the medium that it's in. This is a covering of Heart of Ice from Batman the Animated Series from the early to mid 90s. I'm not sure the exact date this episode came out in particular, covering the story of Mr. Freeze and his backstory as a whole. And Batman the Animated Series had some pretty heavy topics for a kids show and would kind of very narrowly deep dive into these sort of heavier concepts while still maintaining good writing and a somewhat child friendly nature. It was more of the idea that kids should be challenged, not handled with baby gloves. And I think it's just something good that we could sit and talk about and casually enjoy.
So, we're not watching the actual episode, right?
No, we are going to be watching Overly Sarcastic Productions and their coverage of it or tropes as a whole. It's a segment they do where they talk about different tropes, and it's a series hosted by Red and Blue. It's a shared channel. Blue does history content, and Red does common culture and modern mythos kind of content.
Okay, I'm glad we're not actually watching it because I don't want to deal with copyright strikes for watching
No, I wouldn't do that
No,
to you.
no, no, no.
it. We already get hit for covering Christopher Nolan's train wreck.
Oh,
But
that
joke's on
reminds
them, we're
me.
not
Uh,
monetized anyways. Ha ha!
Fuck it.
uh,
Sorry, go ahead, Gleeman.
did you get hits from the last episode?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
It's not a strike or anything. It doesn't actually negatively impact the channel. It's just if we were to be making money off of that episode, off of our podcast episode, then they would take the bulk of the money.
gotcha.
If they were to strike us, I
So they
would do an
claimed it, not
episode.
striked it.
If they were to strike us, I would do a dedicated episode to Christopher Nolan, and he wouldn't want that. He does not want my undivided attention.
Rhino, none of us want your undivided attention.
It's for the best, really.
You could join Metatron.
Oh,
Nolan, Nolan.
Metatron. I I feel like it's appropriate to refer to Metatron for him crashing out on Nolan with how many times he's making videos about it. I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. Keep going. Keep going, Metatron.
Absolutely feed off of that.
And Metatron, if you ever want to join us on Present Company Included, just
Happy
let
to
me
have it.
know. Hit us
Reach
up. We're
out.
on X.
Send a smoke signal.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Um, so, Rhino, have you seen this before?
I have a considerable time ago, though. These guys put out quite a bit of content, so it really does kind of go fast. And this is a bit of an older one for them, but
Okay, because
it's
normally you do a prediction before we get into a video, but if you've seen it already, then it doesn't make sense for you to predict anything.
so you guys get to this time.
I haven't watched the Batman animated series since I was probably like 12 or something. So, man, and for those that don't know, that was a long time ago. I'm no spring chicken.
So the trope talk that it's titled as
Magic monster.
tragic monster. If I'm being familiar with that specific trope, it is talking about a character or creature that was given poor circumstances, whose actions are not forgivable, but whose circumstance um, makes for a tragedy. You sympathize with the creature or the character, but it is also definitive that uh, their deeds are monstrous.
I think that tracks. I can at least agree with that summation. Eddie, any thoughts on what she's going to talk about in particular?
You know, I've never watched this channel before, which puts me at a bit of a disadvantage. Um, I know she's going to talk about Mr. Freeze. Um, Batman will probably be mentioned,
Hmm.
though that's just a probably. There's a chance that Batman doesn't actually ever get mentioned, especially if it's focusing on the backstory. Um, yeah, I honestly don't have much when it comes to um, predictions for this one. I'm here for the ride. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Ain't nothing wrong with
Okie
that.
dokie. Shall I begin?
I'm ready.
Sure.
There's a popular turn of phrase that everyone is the hero of their own story, which is one of the most commonly misinterpreted
I don't have
aphorisms.
any audio coming from you there, Gleeman.
Oh, I hear it fine.
You hear it?
Yes. Checking the bottom right, that little
I've sorry, I figured it out. My bad. That was a user error.
alrighty.
That was on my end.
That scuff train chugs
I'm
along.
sorry. Sorry. We can continue.
We good?
Yeah, yeah, my bad.
Okay.
Audio engineer extraordinaire over here.
Before we continue, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know when this was. I'm fairly certain that it's at least within the last 5, 6 years, right, Rhino?
That would probably be about right.
Uh, They've been going so long, and yet you talk about scuffs. This entire design is just scuffed. And they've had plenty of time to fix it.
This is fine to me. Like this is just it's a background that you're just going to sit there and yap in front of. Like I have no problems here. I mean, yes, you're right. You could probably like sharpen it and update the art style, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It, but like what I'm saying is it kind of is broke, just a little bit. Like you
Gleeman
don't.
revealed as an art snob.
I am
Redhead.
an art snob. Good lord, I do not hide that fact whatsoever. Like
You couldn't if you
it,
tried, Gleeman.
I'm just saying, like the I don't even know like the GIF or whatever it is of the flames. It is so jankily just pasted on here, and then you have like the detailed wallpaper next to the like uh Windows Paint
Like the
um
compressed tile.
tile or stone inlay of the fireplace. And
I'm pretty
then
sure that wallpaper you said is actually just a picture of someone's like hardwood floor used as a wall.
It actually does look like that, yeah.
I could see that. Absolutely. And then the bookshelf, you can't see it because of the closed captions, but the bookshelf actually ends away from the wall, so there's this odd space right behind it, and it's like, okay, why'd you do that though? And then you have clear like focal point going like with the fireplace and with the bookshelf, but then the books themselves are flat.
You know what I'm hearing, Teddy? I'm hearing a lot of nitpicking going on over here.
I'm sure. Yep, you're
Hmm.
not
I'm
wrong.
I'm just saying it could be touched up a bit after years and years.
To be fair to your point, it is probably due for a revamp. But for a small channel with two people who were going to college and, working and all that, this is probably something they just threw together. It was good enough and they ran with it. They may have
And
changed it recently and I just haven't seen too. To be fair, this is quite an old video for them.
that's fair. That's fair. Um I will check to see how old this is. And also I'll check one of their newer videos just to see if Red has touched things up a bit.
Plus, she does do all the animations for these herself, so I mean, her focus is definitely elsewhere when it comes to these videos.
That is true. That is true.
Writing and reality both. Up there with blood is thicker than water and one rotten apple means all the other apples are fine, I think. It sounds like it should mean that everyone thinks of their actions as good and heroic, and that's fully not true. Plenty of people will do bad things wholly aware that what they're doing is wrong. I think it's a lot more accurate to say that everyone is the hero of their own story in that they think whatever they're doing is justified. Narrative.
Yeah,
I can get behind that 100%.
that's what I was going to say. I was going to pause it there and be like, she's going to say justified, and that's perfectly valid. You don't necessarily always have to believe that you are in the right, but even when you're in the wrong, you will find justifications for the wrong that you're doing.
Huh. I guess in at times in the heat of the moment you will find justification for it. It's totally possible for somebody to realize after the fact that they were in the wrong. But in the heat of the moment, or if your anger is inflamed or something, then you probably feel that you're justified in that moment.
Well, even after the fact, plenty of people will find justification later on in their actions, so that they don't have to deal with the guilt of what they did. Um, and nobody
But not
likes
everyone.
to.
The, not
Mhm.
everyone. There are plenty of people that can recognize that what they did was wrong and that
I don't mean everyone does this. I'm simply saying that there are people who will justify themselves after the fact, because they can't deal with being in the wrong.
but
It's a very uncomfortable feeling.
wasn't the original statement that everyone is the hero of their own story and that what they
Yes,
do is justified?
that was the original statement that everyone is the hero of their own story. What she's trying to say is people really tend to misinterpret it that everyone thinks they're the good guy. Uh, for example, if you were a homeless person and you were starving on the street, you would feel perfectly warranted for stealing bread. You have a reason. It's not the right thing to do, but everyone will understand why you do it. And you having that viewpoint of being the person who is hungry, you have a front row view to everything that led you up
Perspective.
to that point. So for you, the steps that you're taking are perfectly reasonable, even if they're not morally correct. They are the correct thing for you to do at the time.
Yeah, and I get that. And but I was just saying that I don't think that it's absolutely everyone that is going to justify their actions.
The
No,
term
I
hero in the phrase is kind of a misnomer.
well,
Okay.
and
The,
I think even she was saying that the everyone's a hero in their own story has been misused, um, and she is making those qualifications. Not saying that everyone does it, but saying that the trope that is being used, she's qualifying the trope, not necessarily
I guess
everyone that the trope applies to, I guess.
I guess as I'm thinking about it, even if somebody recognizes that what they did was unjustified after the fact, right? They got angry, they said something they shouldn't have, they hurt someone, whatever. Even if they realize after the fact that they weren't justified, they would they're still the hero of their story. So I think I'm tracking. I think I'm okay. I think I'm on board. We can continue.
Okie dokie.
Coherent, emotionally compelling, perfectly understandable considering everything going on in their life. Not everyone acts heroically, but everyone is standing under the spotlight on their own personal stage. And under this spotlight, someone can do the most heinous things without ever losing the idea that they're still the hero of their story, even if their internal justification is as simple as just that they're the most important character and the only person whose feelings matter.
So I would agree and disagree. I I would say that there are some people who are capable of accepting to be the villain. Now, granted, she might uh, argue that what I'm about to say is them being the hero of their own story because someone can accept becoming the villain in order for the quote unquote greater good to be afforded to everybody else.
Mhm.
And therefore, the person will do heinous things knowing that it is villainous and that they are a villain, but with the um, idea or the hope in mind that it will bring about a greater good.
I think without getting too lost into the word soup of it, I think a lot of the confusion that comes with that phrase, "You're the hero of your own story," is the term hero. And I think if people said you're the protagonist of your own story, it would be a lot more direct because not every protagonist is a hero. Your protagonist is just the main focus of it.
Yes,
So I think that that would be a more direct way, but she's got to explain the trope from a position that people know. So I mean, I can kind of see where she's leading it.
that's fair. And she is talking about the trope of hero of your own story, not necessarily everyone ascribes to it.
Logically, burning the world down is wrong and we all know it. Emotionally, burning the world down can feel completely warranted for all sorts of reasons. This is a useful thing to keep in mind when writing bad guys. It's usually pretty easy to motivate a hero because heroes are generally reactive. Throw a problem at them and they'll be compelled to respond. But when it comes to motivating the problems themselves, things can get a little more hand-wavy. It's easy to make a bad guy who's just evil because someone has to be, but it's more complicated to write a bad guy who is simultaneously really evil and relatably complex and human.
Hmm. I
So
wonder about that.
there's a bit of truth because there are different flavors of villains. Uh,
Hmm.
there's your typical like my personal favorite, the like classic Disney bad guy of I'm bad and loving it. The guys with like the big grand personalities, they're like kind of larger than life. They're bad, they know they're bad, and they're just really good at doing it, you know? But then you have your tragic villains, like the ones that we're going to get into, who they're more of a villain by circumstance. And then you have all the different shades of gray in between. Like, I think the Punisher would be a pretty good example. It really depends on how you look at what he does as to whether he's a hero or a villain, but he's definitely not firmly camped in either corner.
So Rhino, I'm about to pick apart what you just said there.
Oh dear.
Um,
Every time. Who could have
you
seen this coming?
mentioned Disney villains being bad because they're bad and they love it.
Specific one.
What specific villain are you talking about?
I do not remember his name. Forgive me. But one example is the one with the Tia girl in New Orleans, the voodoo guy. I have a bad and loving it dude. I'm the villain. You know, even got
So
Ursula
that would
from um,
ah
Little Mermaid.
that
Little Mermaid.
I figured you might bring up Ursula. Do you not remember her gripes
I,
with?
I am sure there are gripes and there are complaints. Nobody kicks a puppy because they feel like it. But what I'm saying is that these are people who are bad, and regardless of the reasoning behind what they do, it's the enjoyment they get from it that is the motivator to keep them going down it. Because Ursula could have easily just dusted herself off and just said, "You know what? You suck, but I'm just going to hang out over here." But no, she was doing villainous things and signing contracts regardless of what King Guy said. That was just
Well,
ancillary.
the thing is, what I would posit is that the villains themselves, while the background of why they're villainous is just that put to the background, their characterization and the writing of the villain is well done enough that in an almost invisible way, they're given that same level of reasoning for why they're villainous instead of, haha, I'm a villain because I'm a villain and I love evil.
Well, I
Uh,
don't think that's a very like very young kids show kind of way to look at it. I think the difference, if I had to like try and give you something like really tangible about it, between a bad and loving it kind of villain and the tragic villain like she's going to get into, is the enjoyment they get out of what they're doing, right? Because I mean, every villain probably has a reason they got to that point. Like Cruella de Vil probably wasn't always a monster. It's
mhm.
just it's how they react at the time, because some people are villains, but they don't enjoy the fact that they are the villain. It's just something they feel they have to do or something that they stumbled into.
Well, and like, so for almost all of them, I would say, uh, I forget what his name is in The Princess and the Frog, but he's one of the few characters that I would say is almost a villain because he's a villain.
Yeah.
And it could
It's almost a
be
trope
hand
in
waved.
itself.
It could be hand waved that he deals in voodoo and that's corrupted his personality. But um, I would say, or actually, I'll come back to that. I just had a thought on it. Um, with like the Evil Queen.
Mhm.
It's a jealousy of looks. It comes from a very human emotion
Yeah.
of wanting to maintain her youth, wanting to feel that she's attractive. Quite a few women are prone to this. They are prone to jealousy over someone with better looks than they have. With Ursula, there is a certain level of enmity between her and King Triton. A past wrong has been done. She also inflicts her ire towards this wrong on all of the mermaid kingdom. Um,
Merfolk, thank you very much.
Merfolk.
Her dudes.
Um, and you just see some rather basic human psychology within the villains that don't necessarily have to be fleshed out,
Oh yeah.
but are present in the villains, just given a little bit more scrutiny.
Yeah.
And now, I'm not saying that how I was characterizing them was overly childish. You were the one who posited that they were villains just because they liked being bad, and that's why I
No, no,
was
not
bringing
not
it up.
because they liked being bad necessarily, but they are taking enjoyment out of what they're doing at this point. Like when Ursula sings "You Poor Unfortunate Soul," you can't tell me she wasn't having a good time. And even her gripe with King Trident aside, and it's wild that we're on a Little Mermaid as our sticking point for this argument, but but like her, thank God I have kids and I've seen this movie 1,000 times.
Hmm.
King Triton was the like the thorn in her side for whatever reason. But
Hmm.
even though she had these gripes and complaints with him, when you saw that "You Poor Unfortunate Soul," she had rows and rows of those little worm people that used to be mermaids. So
Hmm.
it wasn't just him in particular. This is just kind of her thing. And she
And
is
she's
having a good
certain.
time doing the bad things that she does. Whereas someone like if I was going to think of a tragic villain, I think Frankenstein, the monster, is the most obvious one that comes to my mind. He is like the truly a victim of circumstance, and like it's just because of his nature that he is vilified and then has to respond in that way because he is being attacked.
Oh,
Y-
absolutely. But as because it's our sticking point, as far as Ursula goes, you also see her justification for her actions.
Yeah.
She acknowledges, but on a whole, now in the past, I've been a nasty.
Hmm.
They weren't kidding when they called me Willow Witch. But you'll find that nowadays I've mended all my ways, repented, see the light, and made a switch.
Did
Um,
she really though? As she's
Absolutely
continues
not. No.
continuing.
sh- she has developed these contracts. She upholds the contracts. Now, there's nothing
She's
in the
lawfully.
contract. There's nothing in the contract that states that she can't interfere with what is going to happen, and that is because Ariel is a very dumb 16-year
Mhm.
old.
To be
Um,
fair, we don't know that for sure, unless it actually shows the entirety of the text of the contract. I
it
I,
it
don't
I'll give
believe
it
would.
to
it
Gleeman. It's
does.
probably implied, even if it wasn't. I think the movie gives enough implication for like how she is and the kind of deals she makes. She's kind of a Rumpelstiltskin kind of character in a weird way.
Uh, Very true. I would totally see it as like she knows Ariel's not reading that contract.
Mm,
And so she puts plenty of clauses that allow her a lot of agency and Ariel very little agency. And it would be up to Ariel to actually read the contract. Now, does she push? Does she like make a big thing of it in order to distract Ariel and then give her a time limit like a used car salesman does? Sure.
mhm.
Yeah, because
But
she is evil and takes pleasure in the evil that she is doing.
she also justifies it to herself that Ariel
Well,
at any time could just refuse the contract.
it's it's not a requirement from for it for one or the other that there is no justification. It's just the enjoyment. Like I said, the justifications are going to be there because nobody does something for nothing. Like there's a reason, even if you don't think there is, that people wind up where they are and doing what they do.
Well,
Some
and that
reasons
that
are better
was
than others.
that was simply my argument is that uh, quite a few times the villain character being evil for evil's sake
Mhm.
it isn't necessarily as black and white as that.
No.
there are
It
the
can be, but it
justifications that you
usually
can
is.
give them.
That really depends on how good the writer is usually.
Very much so. And it's usually the very cheesy, corny villains that are evil just for evil's sake, that are laughable, and they aren't very memorable
Yeah.
either. Because you can have a very evil character who has very little redemptive qualities, but who believes in what they're doing and has their own personal justifications that we can see as being um, not worth the villainy, so to speak. But we still think they are a very good villain
Mhm.
because there's an almost uh, personal integrity within them because of the justifications. That's all I'm saying.
All right, let's keep rolling, Teddy. That
Well,
was quite a
I'm in
tirade.
control.
Gleeman's the one in control here.
Oh God,
They have
we're
to be
never
both
gonna finish.
extremely villainous and believably cast as the hero of their own story. This difficulty exists in writing because it also exists in the real world. We often have a lot of trouble emotionally reconciling the fact that someone can do really evil stuff while also being relatably human. It feels wrong or unfair that someone who does terrible things could also be a genuinely good friend or loving parent or whatever. It's easier to split people into the disparate categories of real human being and inhuman monster capable of such cruelty, because that way we never need to tackle that perceived contradiction.
I actually, oh,
Sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
I was about to say, I actually really love this where she's going with this because it makes me think of Spider-Man: Homecoming and how well that they did
Oh yeah, the Vulture.
with the Vulture. Absolutely, he was a very good dad who was trying to take care of his family, taking an opportunity and uh, basically getting shafted by the government uh, because he was taking an opportunity, and therefore the steps that he took eventually led him into villainy while still thinking about taking care of his family.
Yeah, I don't disagree one bit.
I was gonna say
Y-
people do this not just for fictional characters though. The like
Mhm.
wanting to separate a person from the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
You see it
Mhm.
all the time when people dehumanize uh, political opponents, or when people talk about the evil mustache man and
Hmm.
and the Nazis.
That's
They'll
actually where
talk
my
about
head went to when I heard it.
how they weren't even human, they were inhuman, the things that they did. No, they were very human. They were human people, but people like put this block up in their head to like say that these aren't human, to like try and classify them as something else. I think because they don't want to have to face the very real reality that they as a human are capable of that same level of evil.
Mhm.
And they may find that that person is way more relatable than they thought. I mean, I know the mustache man, you know, Hitler is the most like on point person if you had to pick like a evil guy in history. I could argue Stalin was worse and there's for and against there, but
Sure.
like he's the most on its face like well-known one.
It's the
But
one that's often talked about, but
yeah,
there's plenty of very evil people through history.
they generally don't mention all of the things that happened leading up that got him to that point. You know, he didn't just wake up in that position and then say, "This is what I'm doing today." There was a huge series of cause and effect over decades that led up to that point.
Mhm.
So he didn't just wake up and twirl his mustache and go, fire up the ovens, boys." Like it's just not how that works. You have to be put there over time.
Or make certain decisions over time,
Yes.
and each decision leads to the next, what I would consider a bad decision.
Yeah.
And
And
I would
finally,
agree.
you choose the bad decision, the further down that bad path that you go.
And the reason why Hitler is one that's even remembered is because he was someone that not only was had those things in his life that led up to him being that evil character, but that he also, through happenstance, was in a put into a country where the political leanings and like there's a deep political history as to why kind of the Nazis came to power.
Right.
And then he got put into power and he was effective in his evil. There's
Hmm.
plenty of people that are just as evil as Hitler today, but are ineffective in their evil because they're just grocery store clerks, or they
Yeah,
don't have the power to enact the
they
evil
don't
in the
have
same
that
way that he does.
gravitas to them.
But people don't want to address that. People don't want to have to face the fact that if circumstances were different, they could be in that same level of immorality.
Also, it's much more common than people think that. And I know, again, we're talking about the Mustache Man and 6 million people, but the what he did is a scale that we haven't seen before, but it by itself was not unheard of. With the exception of the factory ovens, people forget at the same time that he had those concentration camps, we had starving Japanese people who were American citizens locked up in camps in America. So, and they do their best not to mention that and like, oh, let's forget that happened as well. But, you know,
Well, and not to
history is written by the
mention,
victors.
and not to mention, in World War One, you had intense use of mustard gas
Oh yeah.
on the battlefield, which was essentially a cruel and inhumane way of warfare. Um, so plenty of things, and to the point of mustache men that are ineffective today. Nowadays, they just go on TikTok and cheer for the deaths of their political opponents.
Hmm.
And wish death upon the orange guy.
Very much, very often.
Yep.
Easier to think that the person who does the monstrous evil was only ever faking being a real human person, because real human people would never do something like that. But the fact is, there is no contradiction here. People can do all kinds of horrible things without thinking twice about it, as long as they feel like it's the reasonable and understandable thing for them to do. Even the simplest motivation there is, because I wanted to, can be all it takes. But the because I
That is very true. And
Okay, I thought you were going to disagree. I was about to say that might be the most fair and base thing she said so far.
oh, no, no, no. I'm not going to disagree with that at all, because I believe that um, one of the things that we're seeing in today's culture is because we do not have the religious foundations that we once did. And I know this veers into your territory, Rhino,
Hmm.
but I believe because of the neo-atheist movement of the 80s and 90s that pulled us away from a more religious society, there was no more moral grounding for people. And so people became morally expedient. It wasn't about is this thing right or wrong? It is about, well, is it convenient to me in the now? And without the moral dogmas from religious institutions, uh, the average person or below average person, it doesn't have the mental fortitude or mental capacity to make those moral judgments on the fly. And so they will just go with what is convenient. in the moment, and that's why we see an upscaling in low class crime.
I don't want to entirely say I disagree with you. I feel like there's more than just the lack of religion that is the cause of that, but I will say it is an aggravating factor. You are correct in that if I think it would still exist even if we did have more of a religious centrism, but the lack of that is certainly aggravating it on top of the other factors which are causing it. So you're not wrong.
Okay.
I have noticed when it comes to discussions of morality, especially on the internet, and Twitter's Twitter, so
Yeah.
take it all with a grain of salt. But overwhelmingly, I see people essentially boiling down to, well, that's wrong because I think it's wrong, or it's okay to do this because I think it's okay to do this, without any sort of framework that kind of backs that up, which means it's at that point it's all subjective, and literally anyone be like, okay, well, if you think that's bad but someone else thinks it's good, then what's your argument against it? And there is none, when your only justification is I want to, or it's just what I think. you know it's not a strong framework to rely on.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I agree.
Wanted to crowd don't tend to be particularly deep thinkers, and it can add a nice layer of complexity if the bad guy has some actual reason why they think the problems they're causing are completely justified, as
Really quick, I love Silco. Absolutely love him as a villain. Mwah. Chef's
Is
kiss.
this Arcane?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't seen it, but just going by the art style, I've seen clips.
Only season 1. Watch only season 1.
So it's like Heroes,
Yes.
just the first season.
Yes.
Do you think,
Absolutely.
are they coming out with a third season for Arcane? Do you know?
No, they are coming out with offshoots. They're branching out from the original series into the individual. What are they called? I'll just keep saying offshoots. So yeah, and I'm honestly unsure if any of those even have a leg to stand on, because season 2 was quite bad.
Well, I know
It
Riot
ended.
has like genuinely a very deep and wide lore for their world, their universe.
Hmm.
Um, so they have a lot to pull from if they're going. So are you saying that the other stories, these offshoots, are they going to be stories unrelated to Arcane, or is it going to be like following a character, kind of like a
I
uh,
believe they are still tied to the same world, and there might be tangential connections to, like in Arcane, they mainly stick with Piltover and
right?
Zaun. And so there will be ancillary characters that are either from Piltover or have visited Piltover and coming back. And so there's that sort of connection there. But I don't think they want to continue the stories of Piltover, and they want to spread out. Um, that being said, Uh, season 2 didn't do so well, so I'm not quite sure what uh, what series or what offshoots are still greenlit and still in the process of being made.
Gotcha. Okay, just curious.
Hmm.
the complex and nuanced protagonist of whatever drama they're playing out on their own personal stage. That reason can be logical, emotional, moral, ideological, whatever, as long as what the bad guy is doing makes sense to them. And it's even more compelling if they're doing it for a reason that also makes sense to us, maybe even a reason that makes us sympathize or pity them. In these cases, the cruelty of the character doesn't make them seem less human. Instead, it highlights the painfully human reasons behind that cruelty, obliterating the false dichotomy between real people who would never do such a thing and inhuman monsters who would. It forces us to look this character in the eye and see both the monster and the person are one and the same. And perhaps if we then turn the eye inward, we may see what parts of our own humanity could be driven to equal acts of monstrosity. When a bad guy is allowed to be the hero of their own story, they take on a very compelling air, especially if that story is a tragedy. One could
I will agree. And I will say that any writers out there, be very, very careful playing with this trope, because while having a compelling villain like the tragic monster makes for a good storytelling, you never want to start making it so that the villain himself is now completely justified in the writing to be doing what he's doing. He can be justified in himself, but never in the actual writing of the story. The moral of the story should still depict him as the villain, even if he's justified in his own actions.
You don't
If that
want a
makes
Wish
sense.
situation. I don't know if you guys have seen Wish, or if you're familiar with Wish
No,
and the
I
king in
haven't, but I
Wish.
am aware.
Genuinely like the only good guy in the story.
That's how I feel about Beauty and the Beast with Gaston. I feel that Beast is the villain and Gaston was in the right from the start. He is the
I
hero.
disagree.
You can disagree, but 10 toes down. That is my stance on it.
Gaston is a
Do you, 10 toes
narcissist.
down? 10 toes down?
10 toes, straight down.
So he was not in the wrong uh for intentionally getting Belle's father
Father.
imprisoned and being sent to
No,
the
no. Hold on.
crazy ward,
Insane
an
asylum.
insane
Yeah.
asylum, knowing that he was not actually insane. That wasn't
Honestly,
wrong of him?
honestly, I don't I can say he's wrong for it, but he is still less wrong than the hero of the story, which is Beast, who
I don't know
kidnapped the
that
guy.
I don't know that Beast is
Hold on.
described as a hero.
Beast is not described as the hero.
Okay,
Or
sorry. The one of the protagonists, because he's supposed to be the love interest who turns good.
Turns good is, I think, the key there.
operative word. Yeah.
Yep, because he is
But
described.
at
He
the
is
end of the
shown to
day,
be a villain at the beginning.
he is also a monster in the literal and superficial, not superficial, the literal and Gleeman, I need the word,
Figurative.
Objective.
figurative way. Because he is one, literally an actual inhuman monster, fairy magic aside and all that. But he has also kidnapped Belle, did everything in his power to keep his people, for lack of a better word, locked up. He has a horrible temper and will trash things. Did we not forget what's in that East Wing where he keeps his little magic flower? What happened to all of the furniture, all of the people in his thing when the fairy did the magic? They turned into furniture. What's in the East Wing?
Fair.
Broken and destroyed furniture. He killed a ton of his people when he threw a tantrum.
That's fair.
Potentially, maybe that might be true. Did it actually say that, or are you just inferring that? Because it could also be explained that with everyone being turned into furniture, the furniture that they already had in the castle was no longer necessary, and so it got thrown into the East Wing.
I'll give you that one, Teddy. I have not considered that. I'm not saying you're right, but I will say I have not considered that they were using that for storage.
I'm not saying that I'm right either. Because I genuinely don't know. I'm just
It's a
saying that
legit possibility. It's never
it is a
said.
possibility based on the information
It,
that I have.
Yeah. It's
it's
never
been
said that
a
that's what he did, but it definitely shows it, and it's in the background enough that I think the designers wanted to give an implication without like a direct point to violence.
well, I think they just wanted to show that he has a very nasty temper and that he has a very poor self image because the East Wing is trashed and that's where he chooses to be. He sees his life in shambles, and that was a very good way to visualize that inner turmoil through an external um, visual.
I do think it's interesting in the story when we're talking about villains, and I know this is a little bit off of the topic of this, but because, us and tangents, but I do think it's funny that Beast got a redemption arc for, him and Belle,
Hmm.
but that redemption arc could have totally went to Gaston and you would have had almost the same story. Gaston could have totally been the one who was redeemed as the tragic villain who fell in love with the girl and now has to rescue her from the beast. He didn't even have to kill the beast. But that redemption arc could have went to either of them and it would have been fine. Because he would have been just the hero who is kind of an asshole saving the love of his life, as opposed to Beast, who was an asshole who became a hero to save the love of his life.
See, I think though there's a very specific story in Beauty and the Beast, and it's another story trope is the taming of the beast. The woman tames the beast within the man.
I think
Um,
that could have gone either way because I will say Gaston was pretty he was a pretty butch, hard-headed, manly dude, bro. So I mean,
yes, but the visual
yeah,
is
it
there.
was far more literal.
Yes, and that's what makes the trope a little bit more stronger, because you see that visual change from the beast to the man, and that's what make fairy tales a little bit more potent for kids to learn from.
Also, for people watching, just so they're not confused, I'm a retard on the internet. When I say hero, 99% of the time, I mean protagonist. I would say hero referring to Deadpool. Obviously not a
Right.
hero hero. But when I say hero, the hero of the story, I mean the protagonist.
I think any of our returning viewers by now should know that Rhino is not exact with his words.
Words are in fact hard.
Would almost call these poor unfortunate beings tragic monsters. Now, despite all this preamble, at first glance,
That's
the
the
tragic
title.
monster sounds a bit vaguely defined. It's a
Isn't it sad that it took us this long to get through her preamble?
It's actually a pretty good preamble, all things considered, to be fair. Like
It
she really did compress a lot of information in a very short time.
it is, but we're what, probably an hour in?
Are we? Yeah, dear God. Every time.
We're
Every
we're
time.
about 50 minutes in.
Okay. It's not too bad.
And to be fair, her preamble was 3.5 minutes long-ish, right? Like we're about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's longer than either of the trailers that we reacted to, and those went on for far longer. So I feel like we're
Yeah,
zooming through this. We're 3.5 minutes
that's
in
true.
less than an hour. That's pretty good.
Killing it.
A monster that's tragic? Lots of things are tragic. Cool motives, still murder. And it's not like monster is going to be any easier to lock down a definition for. Is a tragic monster just a monster that's sad? Or a monster that makes us sad? But despite its component vocabulary being loose at best, fortunately for us, the tragic monster sits comfortably at the center of a pretty simple Venn diagram. The three ingredients of the tragic monster are these: threat, distress, and lack of agency. Threat is the easiest and most self-explanatory factor. A tragic monster is dangerous because otherwise it wouldn't be much of a monster. The tragic monster is an antagonistic figure, at least at first. Distress is also pretty intuitive. A tragic monster
Can you
is not
pause?
happy to
I'm interested in these three ways that she's referring to it:
Mhm.
the threat, distress, and
Lack
lack
of
of
agency.
agency.
Mhm.
Because the threat, it being dangerous, going back to the mustache man, he wouldn't have been dangerous if he wasn't able to get into a position of power, right? Like him being the exact same, he wouldn't really be a villain in the same way. Um, so I mean, she's talking about tragic villains, and I'm not trying to say that he was a tragic monster. I would say he was a monster.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that the threat is something that ties in to the monster portion of it,
Yeah.
obviously. Now, the distress, I'm trying to compare and see a difference between just a monster and a tragic monster. So threat is there for both.
Yeah.
But do you guys think that the distress and the lack of agency is there for both? I wouldn't think of both of them.
So both being what?
Both, sorry, for a tragic monster versus a monster.
I
Okay,
think
A
for
so
a
monster has to
traditional
have threat.
monster, I
The
think
the
for
threat has
a
to be there.
traditional monster, yeah, it has to be scary and intimidating. And then it can either be distressed or have agency, but I don't think it would have all three for it to be a tragic monster because it wouldn't be a monster if it wasn't dangerous in the same way a bear wouldn't be dangerous if it didn't have claws. You know what I mean? That's just it's kind of inherent to what it is.
Right.
The distressed is, I think, and she's probably going to get a little more into it, but that is probably more alluding to the motivation. And then the agency, I think she's getting into that it has to be a choice. Like they have to choose to take those steps that make them a bad person, even if it's for good reasons, to like qualify for tragic monster, as opposed to your normal I'm bad
well,
villain.
okay, so I would say that um a just a regular monster would be threat and lack of agency. Because a monster has no real agency. It's simply doing what it does. It is threatening, and it's threatening because that's what it is. A very little, if any, agency is applied there. Whereas a villain is a threat with agency. Um, and the tragic monster, the distress, is what makes it tragic because it is the threat without any agency. It cannot help itself. But the distress is that um,
The driving
that
force.
that pathos in it. It feels bad for what it's doing, but it cannot help itself.
So under that, following what you said, is it possible then for you to have a monster that is not a tragic monster that also meets all three of these? Or does the distress itself automatically change a monster to a tragic monster?
I
I
think the
think it's
distress
all
would.
three in combination.
Yeah, I think that distress would change it to a tragic monster because it is under duress. Not necessarily, and it could be that the monster is being controlled by somebody else, even then, it's a tragic monster because it has no choice in the matter. It doesn't want to do what it does, but it does, um, even so. And so that there's that bit of empathy that we can give it, or sympathy. I really don't like the word empathy. We can give it sympathy because we can understand its circumstances and that it has no choice in the matter. It is in just as much pain as its victims. It's an existence not worth living, but it's still a threat.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on that. I was
Well, that
trying to
was
get in
mostly my
before.
thoughts on it, but Rhino, what are your thoughts on it?
So, specifically, I think you have to have all three to be a tragic monster. And if you take any one part away, it changes the identity of what you're dealing with, right?
Yes.
If you take the dangerous part out of it, it's not a monster, obviously. If you take the agency out of it, then it can't be tragic because part of what makes it tragic is that it has the choice to do something else, but still takes the steps to do the wrong thing. And
Oh,
it has to have the
Rhino,
distress.
Rhino.
Yes.
She's saying that there's a lack of agency, which makes it the monster.
Oh, I was under the impression that she was saying it had to have agency. Like it had to
No,
have the option to do something else, but choose to take those steps.
her
No,
three
that would
things
make it a
was
villain.
threat, distress, and lack of agency were the three things that
Oh,
she
well, I
says
mean,
makes
they
a
are technically a
tragic
villains.
monster.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would
I guess
a
I could
uh,
see I could see with the lack of agency that it's the it might not even necessarily be a total lack of agency. Like obviously if they lack any agency at all, like they're just chained up and can't physically cannot move, then they're not much of a monster at that point because then they're
yeah.
contained, right? So there's some level of agency, but I would guess that what she's getting at is the feeling that the steps that they've taken or that they have to take those steps, that they don't, the feeling that they don't have another option other than that, even if maybe there is another option, they're just not aware of it.
well,
And
like what I would say with Frankenstein's monster.
mhm.
Um, we call it a monster because there is a significant lack of agency. He does a lot of things instinctually that he also feels bad for. He doesn't want to do these things, but he does them anyway. Because there is that lack of agency. He cannot control the instincts because he has a bad brain. Um,
Steinbeck's of Mice and Men would also be a good example. I
yeah,
forget the
Lenny.
large Lenny is a perfect example of a tragic monster. Even though he's a human, he is a monster of a type because of his like size and how easy it is for him to hurt people without meaning it.
Exactly. And because there's that um, that unwillingness to harm, but he still harms. That's a lack of agency to him, and
Yes.
because he feels bad because he harms, even though he doesn't want to. That's what makes him a tragic monster in that
And the
story.
distress is the fact that he does harm and doesn't want to, and he has a hard time coping with that fact, and they have to keep changing towns because of it.
Right.
if if they truly have no agency, so if
Yeah.
the things that they're doing are purely instinctual or if they don't really have a choice in the matter, then can the things that they're doing even be described as evil?
Agency is like a one of those like $3 words that it's kind of hard to pin down in context like this because agency can mean a lot of things to a lot of different things. It could be like your willingness to take the steps to do a specific thing. It could be your ability for other things to inflict on you what you are going to do. It could be moral dilemmas that you have to choose, or it could be moral things that happen to you that you really just don't even have a way of going about them, because how do you have agency over something where you don't have all the information on? So I think agency is one of those ones where it makes sense, but it really depends on what angle you go at it at, whether something does or doesn't. Because, like, does a dog have agency? I would say yes, because it can choose to chase the ball, but someone else might say it's too stupid not to.
But so my question was that if a dog bites someone, you might say that it was a bad dog, a poorly trained dog, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd be hard pressed to call that dog evil.
Yeah.
If it's a tragic monster that doesn't have agency, can it be described as evil at that point?
I wouldn't think so, because if it doesn't have agency, like, at all, then it doesn't have a say in what it's doing at all. In the sense that it might, like, take a mind controlled person. A mind controlled person doesn't have any agency whatsoever, regardless of what they do. So you can't then put the burden of what they did on them because they weren't in control. Something else was.
So then, I know that this video is going to get into talking about Mr. Freeze.
Mhm.
Um, if he is truly a tragic monster,
Yes.
then by that logic, he cannot be described as evil. Do
No,
you agree with
you can
that?
still absolutely be evil.
But
Um,
if he's a monster without agency,
no,
then
no,
it
I don't
was
think
without
I don't
his
think
choice.
I don't think he's entirely without agency. That's why I'm curious, because can we actually listen to that clip again? Because maybe she had some context in there that I'm missing, because the
Well, she's
total
about to get
part.
to the lack of
She had,
agency.
yeah, she
Oh,
hasn't
okay.
got to the lack of agency part.
Maybe we
I
just need to
actually
hear that a little thoroughly.
I purposefully got us pause to talk about it beforehand because I wanted to discuss our thoughts before she described
Yeah.
what she went
Mm.
through.
To be what it is
But we
or
can
do
continue.
what it does, because an enthusiastic monster is really only tragic for the people it mauls. The tragic monster must be unhappy with its lot, whether it's miserable because of what it is or just because of how it's treated for what it is. And on that note, it's the lack of agency that really defines the tragic monster. There's something about it that it has no control over. This can be something that's been done to it, or
Okay,
just the
I
way it
see.
was born. It's almost always a physical characteristic, too. Mental traumas can work for this,
Lack of
but
what it
tragic
is, not as it the lack of control in what it is, like, interesting verbiage, because we were looking at it for, the lack of agency speaking as to what it does and, like, how it acts, not the, like, physical characteristics and the things about it, like, uh, the way you were born being a villain. If you were born with a lobster claw hand, that's not agency, you're just kinda stuck that way.
Right.
First, my 90s upbringing making me think it's only what people do that matters and not about what they are or what they look
No,
like.
I was
How
looking at it
dare
from
I
the
not
exact
actually jump to that conclusion?
No, you're 100% right, Teddy, because I was looking for it for the exact same way, and that's what got me so confused. Like, how can it not have agency? Because I always think of agency as what you do, but even though I said 3 times the things others put upon you.
So
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Gleeman.
I was about to say, like, I can very much think of a lack of agency being something that is purely instinctual. That's why I went for Frankenstein's monster, or your typical like creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yeah.
or anything like that. They are monsters that go by pure instinct, and they're monstrous because, one, they are a threat, and two, they're a threat to us specifically. That's why we can consider them monsters.
She's
Um,
speaking of agency from outside forces or uncontrollable forces outside of you. The way you're
well, not
born, the way
necessarily.
other people see you, things like that.
Necessarily. It could be inside you as well. There's that trope of the monster in all of us. There's that inner thing that uh, is in your psyche that you cannot get rid of, or it is very difficult for you to get rid of, and it's very difficult for you to fight. That would be a monster inside of you.
I think if we go back and we listen, I think an important part about her lack of agency wasn't that the person has no agency in anything, but it's
It's
that it doesn't
for what
it
it is.
well, and she had said it lacks agency in something. There's
Right.
a aspect that they cannot control about themselves.
It's not a very it can be an aspect of something, but it doesn't necessarily have to be defined as this one thing, like it's outside of itself or it's inside of itself. It's a lack of control or a lack of agency and something to do in the story.
And she also said that it often is something about a physical characteristic, something that
It could
the way they
be a
appear.
physical characteristic. Like it could be, doesn't necessarily have to be.
It could be some
Well,
sort of like brain damage or something that causes them to lash out and act in a horrible, evil way, even though they don't want to. That would be more like the lack of agency we were talking about earlier. But that doesn't mean that the person lacks agency in everything that they do in life. They don't have to
right.
And that's
lack
where a lot of the confusion was. We were thinking very like very
absolute.
absolute. Yeah, good. Thank you. Absolute in the terms of it.
Yeah.
it's almost
Okay.
always a physical characteristic, too. Mental traumas can work for this, but tragic backstories are a dime a dozen in fiction, and the tragic monster usually needs something a little more meaty to really make it properly miserable. This factor is usually the cause of its distress and can also be a component of the threat it poses. Put all these ingredients together, and the tragic monster takes a more comprehensible shape. A tragic monster is what it is through no fault of its own, is not happy about being what it is, and is dangerous to the people around it. Lots of classic threats fit this model. All zombies, almost all werewolves, the archetypical Frankenstein's monster, and more broadly, any victim of fucked up mad science. Monsters who were once normal people but became warped or infected or cursed in some irreversible way and are now deadly threats. Characters that are unquestionably dangerous and potentially even actively malevolent, but inspire pity regardless because they are both perpetrator and victim of some terrible tragedy.
Yeah. I would agree with that, and I'm
Yeah.
basically just pausing because of transformative content and all that.
Well, I'm not sure that I do necessarily agree with all that, but this is probably a more personal take. One of the things that she listed as an example is like all zombies.
Yeah, you heard
And
that
like
too.
I do not think of them as like a tragic monster. I don't look at
I mean,
a
it does
feel
fit.
pity for zombies, but that could just be due to the overabundance of zombie based media that has come up through my life.
The pity from others, she's speaking in generalities, but if you look at the specific criteria, a zombie does fit perfectly. It is a monster. It's like a horrible thing for whatever it is. It
No,
has
I
no
don't think it
agency.
is. I don't think
I
it fits
don't think
because
it's
it doesn't have
it's
the second
it
one, the
it's
not
not
liking what it is.
it doesn't have the distress. Well,
Yeah.
it depends. It depends.
I could very much
Um,
imagine a zombie being a distress. You're certainly distressed when you become one.
well, that's the thing
Sure.
is most zombies, at least the zombies that I've seen depicted many a time, have no feeling for their own existence.
Yeah.
That would make them a monster, but not necessarily a tragic monster.
I
I think
typically
you
think
could
of zombies
argue.
as mindless so that they don't have so they're not in distress. They're more like automatons at that point, like
It's
fleshy
simply
automatons.
they are the threat without the agency, which makes them a monster.
Well, they don't have agency, which was one of the criteria. But the distress, I think there's an argument to be made that the distress part came before the actual zombie when you were being chased by zombies to be turned into a zombie. And that
But
is
the
part of the
distress,
tragedy.
the The distress has to come from the monster itself to be a
Yeah.
tragic monster.
I'm
You,
pulling it up on my other monitor. Going back to her card about distress, the text on the screen says, "Distress, the tragic monster is not happy to be what it is." I don't think a zombie cares about what it is or isn't. In most depictions of zombies.
But does it count if you were not happy at the idea of becoming a zombie?
no, it doesn't count
Because
because
at
you
that
are
point you're
not the
not a monster.
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not a
All right,
monster at that point.
all right, I'll give it to you. I, a little fast and loose. You know,
Yes, you do like to
less of a
play as
stickler.
fast and loose.
Get along, you two. Don't make me turn this podcast around.
No,
In
but I
some
can
cases,
see how someone would think that's the case, though. Like, I could see how someone could look at a zombie and say, "Yeah, that pretty much fits that criteria in a ballpark kind of way."
Well, I would say that in some stories, there are times when the zombie is self-aware and it does not like what it is. But
Or
it's
like the
very
rage virus from
specific.
28 Days Later, where you're kind of technically still alive. That would be another example, I think, where you're maddened.
But are they self-aware and not happy with what they are?
I mean, when the dad was turning into one and thrashing around, he was fighting against it pretty conservatively. And I think there are scenes in the original 28 Days Later where if you slow down the sounds they're making, they are speaking. I could be thinking of a different zombie movie, but that feels like it was 28 Days Later. Like there is speech tucked in there somewhere.
I haven't
So
seen it, so that could be one example of where the story is written specifically so that the zombies can be tragic monsters. But in a more general sense, I would say that most zombie stories just have them as your typical monster, which
Yeah.
is the threat plus zero agency part, but lacks the distress.
Okay.
yeah, and I will admit that there certainly can be stories with where the monsters or where the zombies could be that. But I believe she said all zombies. I
And
believe that
that could
was her
be
take, and that's
a
where,
misspeak on her side.
or
Um,
it could be a misremembering on my side.
uh,
I'm good at not
see.
remembering things right. It's my superpower.
science. Monsters who were once normal people but became warped or infected or cursed in some irreversible way and are now deadly threats. Characters that are unquestionably dangerous and potentially even actively malevolent but inspire pity regardless because they are both perpetrator and victim of some terrible tragedy. In some cases, the tragic monster may even seek out or welcome its own destruction to really drive home how heartbreakingly unfair everything is. We can also see pretty quickly why all three of these factors are necessary to create the tragic monster. If you try to make one without the threat component, you get a Quasimodo, a character who is unhappy about something they can't control about themselves and the way they're treated for it, but not really inclined to do any damage. These guys are only tragic until they find friends and loved ones who accept the parts of them they've previously been feared for, at which point everything works out. Without the distress, you get a classic monster sans tragic, one that didn't ask to be born or made very dangerous, but is nonetheless very happy to be a terrible threat.
And that's what I was leaning
Yeah.
in towards. The threat without agency, that is your
Mhm.
just typical monster
Yeah.
side. And it's when you add the distress that you get to the tragic monster. And then I'm, and she just listed it there. The threat
Mhm.
with the distress is just a sad villain because he has agency. And he is the threat and he knows he's the threat, but he has
And
agency in it.
yeah, he has the choice to be the threat or not. He has a choice to be a villain or not, and
Yeah,
continues to choose to be a villain. So
but he's not happy about it.
he's not happy about it, but he's not a tragic monster. So
Right.
yeah.
And if you remove the
I'm
lack
following
of
along.
agency, you get a character who's dangerous and unhappy, but in complete control of themselves and their trajectory in life. In short, a regular villain with poor job satisfaction. No, the tragic monster needs all three.
It's a very interesting way to put it. Villain with poor job satisfaction.
He does have a way with words.
They didn't choose to be this way, they don't like being this way, and they're making it everyone's problem. One of the biggest examples, literally, is the original conceit behind Godzilla. I've already talked about this in more depth in my old kaiju video, but before he got his rough edges sanded off for market-friendly WWE matches with rubber suits and giant puppets, Godzilla was a victim of the H-bomb testing in the Pacific, mutated painfully and horribly, driven to rampage by the flippant and careless hubris of humanity. He's terribly dangerous, in extreme distress, and is not responsible for his own monstrosity. We are. He's the perfect archetypical tragic monster, and one of the only ones who isn't also, on some level, a full person. Godzilla.
I don't disagree with that.
I might, though. I would have to watch the original to get a better sense of Godzilla's character in that. I always understood the original Godzilla to be a monster, just your standard monster. I didn't know of any distress that he himself was depicted as having in
The
that film.
implication in the original one was that it was either something that had already existed or a creature that had become mutated because of the H-bomb tests. I mean, Godzilla in and of itself is sort of an allegory for the hydrogen bomb, but
Well, not even sort of. It was an
yeah,
allegory. They couldn't. Japan couldn't actually depict the atom bomb in their films.
yeah.
That was kind of banned by the U.S. So they came up with Godzilla as a sort of catharsis so that they could address what had happened to their country.
I think the pain that they're speaking of is the fact that this creature, whether it existed before or afterwards, it's been a year since I've seen the original, was essentially struck by this and turned in this way. And because of that and the pain that it's suffering, I do believe the movie very much implies that it is suffering and that is why it is lashing out. And it's also a very much a metaphor for radiation, how it lands there, hurts an area, and then spreads the destruction.
That could be it. Like I said, I haven't seen the original, so I would have to see the original before I give a hard stance on
I
either
would
way.
recommend watching it. It's a very different take compared to the modern Godzilla, like she said, and
Oh
it is
yeah,
quite good.
absolutely. Yeah.
If that is the distress, which is the physical pain that it's enduring, that
Mhm.
it's gone through, then that's a change in definition from the distress that she had talked about previously. Because previously she had said a tragic monster is not happy to be what it is or do what it does.
I mean, I would
And
imagine
that's
that if I was chilling on the ocean and someone dropped a bomb on the back of my neck, I wouldn't be very happy, you know? And
Well,
it's probably not
it
happy to be in that scenario.
well,
but being in
uh,
that scenario is very different than not happy to be what it is or to do what it
well, if it
does.
would it count if it's distressed because it is in pain,
I
and
mean,
it
I
is
imagine it
lashing
would.
out because it cannot deal with its pain?
Okay, let's go
Now
through
that
this.
that's a
Let's go
good
through this
question.
real quick.
I'm just saying that it's a change from the definition that she had previously laid out for the distress.
Well, would that
We have
fit
the list.
under?
We
Well,
have the
would that
list.
fit?
Monster, check.
Mhm.
Distressed, bomb to the back of the head, check.
Oh, no, 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 no. We have to stick with what distressed was defined as, not simply,
Something it
oh, we have a word distressed and we're going to make it ambiguous like you always do.
Okay, well, let me be very specific then. She said that the source of the distress had to be something that is out of the person's control. It didn't have to just be physical, but it had to be something that they had no control over. And I think that the Americans dropping an H bomb on top of you is very much out of your control when you're a lizard on the ocean.
See, but that could cause the change, but not necessarily the stress. I'm talking about it could be under immense pain because of the change. And that's where the distress is coming
Which would
from.
also be out of its control.
Yes.
And then the lack of what's the word? Uh, the word I hate.
The lack of agency.
Agency. Thank you. The lack of agency. It didn't control what happened to it. It doesn't control the pain it's in, and it had no control over the situation of what happened between the US and Japan. It had no agency in anything that led up to it being at that point.
Well, I would hand wave all of those away in
Of course
that
you would.
well, the very real lack of agency that it has is it's a creature. It's a lizard that is going on instincts here.
Can
Um,
I
I don't think that means you have a lack of agency just because you're not a person though. Again, you throw a ball. The Everybody's throwing a ball for a dog and they don't chase it. Everybody's threw a ball for a dog and they do chase it. There's a decision being made there. Not all agency has to be high-minded human thinking. It could have chose to go the other direction, away from Japan, but it had no say in a bomb being dropped on top of it. Agency by itself isn't necessarily some, like you need a level of critical thinking or human intelligence to do it. It could be something as simple as having a choice between two bushes and figuring out which one you're going to pick the berry from. There's agency in
so, would you say that the snake has agency when the man is giving it a drink and it strikes him and
that.
bites
Yes,
him?
yes,
I
yes.
would say that the
There are
snake is
instincts that
following its nature, which is a lack of agency.
no, I strongly disagree. Nature influences agency, but it is not a requirement. In the same way that humans have nature,
in
but we
that
still
case,
have agency.
if the snake it has agency, then
Mhm.
I'm going to bring it back to evil. Then if the snake has agency and chooses to strike the man, would you describe that snake as evil because it is
That
choosing to
depends.
harm others?
That depends. Have you ever seen a dog that even though the dog wasn't beat or wasn't mistreated, it was just a mean ass dog?
Sure, yeah. I've seen poorly trained dogs or
Is
dogs that
is is that dog evil?
I would say no.
Okay. So even though, again, your nature will influence your decisions in your agency. Humans have nature. We have things that are pre-programmed in us that we live through and they influence our everyday decisions, but it is an influence.
Wait. I would say no that the dog is not evil because
Yeah.
I don't consider the dog to truly have agency there. A poorly trained dog act is I don't think is a is responsible for itself, which is why I would
Okay.
say it doesn't have agency and is not evil.
So then a
I
poorly
wouldn't
trained
say that the
person,
snake is evil either, but what I am saying is that if you are attributing it agency and the ability to choose, then at that point you have to take into consideration that they are then making the choice and are now capable of being evil.
yeah. Okay.
And maybe you think that and that's fine.
I'm just trying to
That's why
I'm
I was
trying to
asking.
like square it because like with that same mentality, a poorly trained person with a bad upbringing or came from a bad family or home life would not therefore be evil regardless of what it did.
I disagree because
I disagree
humans
with the sentiment, but by
have
following
far
that,
more intelligence and capability to control their actions than a dog does.
yeah, but it still has the option. A dog chooses to bite you. It's not a reflex that when you walk by a dog, it has to snap out. in the same way I had a snake.
How do you know? Have you been in a dog's brain?
I would love to for a day. It's got to be better. It has to be better.
Well, that is an admission that he has not, so he cannot know that the dog has agency.
Okay, back to Godzilla. I just think
Okay.
that it is a tragic monster because intelligence aside, intelligence was never really a stipulation for the tragic monster, right?
We were just talking about its lack of agency and where that comes from.
Yes.
And I was saying that it comes from being a lizard, and that's where the lack of agency comes from. But
Okay.
you disagree, and you think the lack of agency comes from uh, the uh,
Yes, the
the
outside
circumstances that
forces
it was put
being
in.
put onto.
But so you
I
both agree that he has a lack of agency.
both can
You're
be
just
true
this,
though. Like
yeah.
honestly, you
Yes.
can have a lack of agency from two things. If one person punches me in the head and the other person kicks me in the ass, I didn't have a choice in either.
Now, my my qualm with it was the distress, and not just distress in the colloquial way the word is used, but in the way that she has defined the distress that makes a tragic monster.
Because when she
Because
says
just being
distress,
in
I mean,
pain, I don't believe was covered in there.
yeah, but it could also be in a uncomfortable or like hyper negative situation. Like if we were going to look at the word distress, you don't have to necessarily be in physical pain to be distressed. I mean, somebody having a gun to the back of your head would be a distressful situation.
Right, but the distress, as she defined it on her little card, is the tragic monster is not happy to be what it is.
I To be what it is.
Well, and that's why I was tying the pain back to its actual being. It is not happy to be what it is because it is in pain.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if not a physical attribute, but something that is currently happening would apply there. I mean, I imagine it would. Because I mean, if you're not happy to be what you are, I imagine that you would also broadly like kind of sweep around and say, like, yeah, you might not also be happy to be where you are or how you are.
All right, let me just read what she said, word for word. This'll just take a minute.
Hmm.
Tragic monster is not happy to be what it is or do what it does because an enthusiastic monster. Um, whoops, I lost my spot. The enthusiastic monster is really only tragic for the people it mauls. The tragic monster must be unhappy with its lot, whether it's miserable because of what it is or just because of how it's treated for what it is.
Okay.
See, and I would say in this case, if Godzilla is being tormented because he has been changed into what he is, and he is in constant pain for that, he
I will
is
say
in an unhappy state of
I
his
will give
being.
you I'll give you this, Gleeman. I think given that definition, I would say it is probably not veering into unclear because it may be a definitional issue. Like
I'm
a
sure
lack of
everybody listening is just super excited about us going in depth into the definition of
Oh yeah.
being used of distress.
So what really is pain?
Oh god. Okay.
uh,
It's fine.
I'm-
I haven't seen the Godzilla movie either, this original one. So it's possible that it fits. I just wouldn't be able to say for sure without actually watching it.
I don't know why I'm stubborn today.
It's fine.
I think it's me. I think I pull it out of you.
You really do. I don't know how. I think it's because you're pedantic, whereas I just kind of I handle things very broadly and I just kind of look at things like maybe less definitionally, but more by intent.
You
I guess you get
really like to
to it.
be loosey goosey with a lot of things.
I do, because I think intent matters more than like when it comes to things like speech. Intent to me is much more important than like the rigorous side of it of being like you better put that fucking apostrophe right where it was. You know that sentence is invalid.
Well, I do like to be exact with
Yes.
my wording, so there's
I
that.
actually I actually think that I'm kind of between you two. I have conversations with my wife all the time where I start using like internet lingo or whatever, and
Hmm.
and she'll get on me about it. But I'm like, the point of communication is to be able to communicate thoughts to
Yes.
people, and I was
Express
successful
ideas.
in expressing my thoughts and ideas to you. You knew what I meant, so there we go. But then when I read some of the stuff you write, Rhino, I don't always know what you mean. And the punctuation and proper spelling could go a long way to helping me understand what you mean.
It could.
And that could be
The
a
spelling
failing on my
especially.
own part.
No, no, because it's a tragedy because you have both my normal typos where, I just accidentally bumped the wrong button on the keyboard, and then you have my tragic misspellings, and sometimes they really meet in interesting ways.
And
Yeah.
then you have his either purposeful or not so purposeful um, choices to make things become ambiguous as far as what he means.
I like to think I'm very specific.
No, no, you like to broaden things out
I like to think
to their
I
fullest
really get into
spectrum.
the pedantic nature of it.
No, that is me reeling you back in with my pedantry.
I think, if anything, I really ground you and give you a good base to go
You
off of,
ground
and you
me.
expand from me.
You
You
heard
like to
Gleeman.
go into nebulous terms. You like things to be as nebulous as possible. Good lord, you're the wiggler.
The
All right, Teddy.
Wiggler.
Or Gleeman, play the video. Right. Ah,
Is
goodness.
characterized as an animal, confused, in pain, out of his depth, unfamiliar with his own mutated body, and driven by a blend of instincts and pure horrific agony. Godzilla's director
Ah, I was right.
Honda said, "Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That is their tragedy. They do not attack people because they want to, but because of their size and strength, mankind has no other choice but to defend himself. After several stories such as this, people end up having a kind of affection for the monsters. They end up caring about them." And he's super right. It's not their fault that they are what they are, but the danger is still inarguable, and that means conflict is inevitable. It's unfortunate. A situation with no clean win condition where everyone winds up happy. Tragic monsters inspire pity first and foremost, and that means that even their defeat is no cause for unconditional celebration. But pity is not all that they inspire. Tragic monsters usually start where Godzilla does, stripped of agency, distressed, and dangerous. But a lot of tragic monsters are a little more thinky than Godzilla, and start making informed decisions very quickly. This can send them down complex character arcs that may keep them pitiable, but may also start layering on more things that can supplement that pity with things like
Hmm. It's interesting that she's showing Akira here. Hmm. I would I would not put Akira in the role or in the position of a tragic monster though.
It's been far too long since I've seen it for me to make a judgment call on that.
I would say Akira still has quite a bit of agency to him. So it he would need to lack agency for him to be truly a tragic monster.
Well, I don't think
Remember
it has
when
to be agency in its entirety. I think it just has to be agency for like a specific thing. As long as you lack
exactly.
agency in one particular like subject.
That's true. Like he did lose his agency by becoming the experiment. Hmm. Interesting.
Like, for instance, a good dose of cool motive still murder. As an example, almost every Batman villain is a tragic monster, because they're all narrative foils of Batman in one way or another, and Batman himself is a tragic monster. Very dangerous, never happy, and shaped every moment of his life by the awful, senseless tragedy that destroyed him at age 8. So to properly play off of that, most of his rogues gallery are the same way. People whose chances at a normal, happy life were obliterated by some outside force, usually an encounter with an unsecured chemical vat or a big fire. Although some of them, like the Penguin, Killer Croc, and Baby Doll, are afflicted by genetic conditions that have made them look unusual their whole lives, inspiring cruelty and dehumanization from the people around them. But whether their villain origin hits prenatal or post-graduation, they all start the same way. Something terrible and unfair happens to them, and either gives them dangerous superpowers or the motivation to go out and buy the dangerous superpowers available to all Gothamites under the Second Amendment. And then
Gotham's kind of based.
I've got my superpowers.
Chemical X and a Tommy gun? Say less.
I just sometimes she just hits me with those liners. It's so great.
They're good because she'll go on a tirade and you don't expect them to come in.
Yes, absolutely. And then you have the Joker who loves dynamite because it's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes boom.
they start doing crime. And this is where the tragedy of the tragic monster starts to become more of a foundation for their character to be built on by their subsequent choices. Does it suck what happened to Two-Face? Absolutely. Does it still get kinda hard to feel sorry for him after a while? Yes. It wasn't their fault that the world was cruel and unfair to them, but everything they did from that point forward was their fault and their choice. And while they remain a tragic monster throughout, they also become proper villains through the decisions they make and the doubling down they do after their tragic origins resolve. And after a while, the villainy can start to eclipse the original tragedy that motivated it. Which is why it's...
I would agree with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily that the lack of agency can needs to stick with them, but there was a lack of agency at some point in their existence that is pivotal to their existence.
It has to at least be present in their creation myth.
You're right.
Such a good character beat that Batman always retains that awareness of tragedy, never stops pitying his rogues and trying to help them after he's done beating them up and dismantling their latest schemes. He's compassionate enough to keep the tragedy in mind even after the rogues have stacked a bunch of atrocities on top of them and made themselves pretty hard to sympathize with. Spider-Man has a similar situation, actually. A lot of his rogues are tragic monsters in one form or another, and even the ones who are more commonly portrayed as just plain bad have been reimagined as tragic monsters in more recent stories. Marvel's Sony Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 and also Knuckles is there, gave this treatment to Venom, who in most versions is a vindictive asshole who's gleefully and willfully malicious, but in this game, he's a victim of a debilitating incurable illness comboed with his dad hitting him with an experimental medical treatment that turns out to be an alien goo with a crush on Spider-Man. He even hits the classic tragic monster beat where he begs Spider-Man to destroy him to save everyone else. What's interesting is that the previous game in the series did a similar reimagining with a twist. See, in that game, Peter's status quo from the very beginning has him interning with lovable Dr. Otto Octavius, who everyone in the audience knows damn well is destined to become Spider-Man's second most iconic foe, Dr. Octopus. But Otto is a well-meaning, bumbling, sympathetic underdog fighting for funding while seething at the dispassionate cruelty of local rich asshole Norman Osborn. And
So, we were having it run quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
I felt really bad about like letting it run that long. Granted, she's giving us a lot for us to digest.
She's really
That-
building the foundation of what she means. She's doing a great job.
She is.
I don't have much to
Hmm.
say on these examples. I didn't play these games that she's referencing, so I don't know the specifics about how those
think we
played out.
can skip ahead because yes, good examples. Keep going. I think Here we go.
And then, instead of having dangerousness thrust upon them, they choose it, perhaps as a method of regaining some semblance of control or agency, or of avenging themselves on the cruel world that did this to them in the first place. The tragedy happens outside of their control, but they choose to become a monster, and as they double down and slide past the moral event horizon, the tragedy of their circumstance starts to shrink in the rearview mirror, until all that's left in view is the danger they pose and how much they need to be stopped. Of course, there's an inversion of this too, because not every tragic
Was that
monster
Akira again?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not. I thought I had seen it, but none of that looked familiar. So maybe I never actually saw Akira.
Do you remember him becoming a very big head?
If I would have watched it, it would have been like 20 years ago, and no, I do not
I'm
remember
in the same
him
boat.
becoming a very big head.
I've seen it. It's just been decades.
So yeah, he basically starts to rip apart the city with his telekinetic powers. Um,
So this talk of tragic monsters is making me think of some other stuff that I've seen in media lately, where they seem to be people in Hollywood seem to be going and trying to make new stories about the villains of old stories, but making them the protagonist, the hero, trying to make
Very
them
much.
the good guy.
mhm.
And I think that they're going too far with it to the point where, like you were saying, you don't actually want your villain to be actually justified in what they do, just that they think that they're justified.
Yes,
Yes.
that's been a problem with a lot of the modern writers is they don't see the point in what was making for a sympathetic villain. The point was to ground the villain in a humanity, so that we can um, better understand where they're coming from, but it was never to actually justify the actions. It was never actually to make the villain right in what they're doing. It was only supposed to be that they're wrong, but you understand where they're coming from.
I think that a lot of it comes from because Hollywood right now, and when I say Hollywood, I mean a particular kind of people in Hollywood, as well as a particular kind of people in writing and media right now that are really pushing some strong agendas. They're so morally bankrupt. And I know I'm the pot calling the kettle black here, but they are totally morally bankrupt to the point where they watch something traditional, like let's say Batman, for example, and they find themselves having more in common with the villains than the heroes themselves. So they put themselves in those shoes, saying, "This is the person I align with. This has to be the person who's good," doing the mental gymnastics that takes. And then they write it to where now this person who is equally morally bankrupt is now the protagonist.
I would agree. I think some of it also comes from a steady, I guess you could call it a sort of delineation of um, the morally gray,
Mhm.
where in the 90s you had quite a bit of the stories where um, the heroes weren't necessarily depicted as being the absolute pinnacles of goodness. They made mistakes. Um, they actually did bad things,
Mhm.
for which they regretted doing those bad things and sought penance. But nonetheless, heroes were making those bad choices. In the same vein, villains were given those sympathetic stories where um, they were doing wrong things, but you were starting to understand their motivations. Now, uh, put that into a culture that was no longer seeing things in black and white, and um, children weren't necessarily being taught what was right and wrong, but that things were morally gray. Continue that trend to now when you have people who see that sort of thing happening, where the hero does something that is might be morally reprehensible, but is still seen as the hero. They no longer see it as, oh, the hero is penitent or repentant for what they've done. They know what they've done is wrong. They see it as, oh, the hero did a thing and is still the hero because they're the hero. It regardless of what actions have been taken, they are the hero no matter what. And you can follow that train of thought down the line as things get further and further into the gray. It becomes harder and harder to distinguish what is hero, what is villain, to the point where the hero is the one that I root for, and they are the hero because I say that they are the hero, regardless of their actions. And so then you have villains who are proclaimed as heroes because they're said to be the hero. And for the
Captain Marvel,
writer,
what?
precisely.
Sorry, that was a weird cough. Oh, never coughed like that before.
But truer
Odd.
words, never spoken.
Truer
You
thoughts
have
never coughed.
uh, you have a hero, quote unquote, who does villainous things, but the writer still chooses to write her as the hero because she is the hero, no matter what she does. Everything she does is heroic and should be justified. Tangent
And I'm
over.
tired. I'm tired of those types of stories. Um,
Same,
really tired of it. The
same.
In my mind, the tragic monster or even sympathetic villain in older stories, um, you could understand where the villain was coming from, but you're supposed to still recognize that they are the villain, and it's supposed to be a warning about taking kind of whatever their feeling is too far, or a recognition that just because you feel justified doesn't mean that you are justified. Um, you're
Hmm.
supposed to be able to see that through the movies that uh, that Scar felt like he would be a better king, and
Yeah,
so he justified killing his brother and attempting to kill his nephew. I think that
understandable.
was
We've all been there.
right. But in his mind, he was justified. But you're supposed to see he wasn't actually a better king. He was far worse. He wasn't a good guy. And this is
And
what happens when you allow your own justifications to overwrite reality and what is actually just. And so you're not supposed to come away thinking, "Oh man, that Scar, he really had a bad deal because he was born second in his family or whatever," you know? Um, Now, admittedly, Scar was intelligent. He was a smart character.
Hmm.
Um, Probably more intelligent, but less wise than Mufasa.
Hmm.
He was a schemer, and he thought that that's would make him a good king. Obviously not. But
Or
again,
would have realized that Nala was Simba's sister.
we're not going to get into that right now. Deviating from my tangent here. But the point being, you weren't supposed to come away with this feeling that he was in the right. And I'm tired of these stories where they try to reframe everything to put the villains as the good guy, or to try and say that, like, well, their point of view is just as valid as
The
other
heroes.
people's, as the heroes. No, he starved a kingdom. He let the hyenas run the place. And it was bad, not just for the lions, for the gazelles, for everyone. All the animals in the animal kingdom were suffering because of him. It was not good.
Cruella tries to kill puppies.
Yeah.
And they tried to make her into some sort of anti-hero type of thing. Like, they weren't even trying for a sympathetic villain. They were trying to make her into some sort of hero. It's like,
Okay.
no, she tries to kill puppies.
But have you considered that 2 dogs attacked her mom and yeeted her off a cliff?
Wait, did they try to make her a hero?
Yes.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen clips
It,
of it. It's awful.
in Cruella, they try to give her some sort of hero arc.
You know what? That movie is inherently evil because somehow Disney managed to fit CGI into a story about fucking fashion. Like, that's the true evil of that fucking movie. Like, you can't do an outfit change without CGI. Kiss my ass, Disney. Come on.
Well, and apparently, Pongo and Purdy, is
Yes.
it? They are also gifts from Cruella to um, oh, Roger and Anita.
Speaking of CGI, how in the world do they call the Lion King remake a live
A live
action?
action.
How is
Oh,
that live action? What live action happened when literally everything is a CGI animated lion?
yes, I
I
agree.
I don't get it. They simply made it worse because with the realism that they went for, you
Yes,
cannot have the same expressions. You can't convey the information in the same
yeah.
way as you could with the cartoon aesthetic.
See, I would have took it a step further. I would have used it to fuck with people. I'd have put things all over the place, like filmed on location.
Just bring out a couple of real lions to sit in front of
Yep.
some in an interview to discuss the movie that's coming up like they do with the actors. Yeah.
There you go.
God, anyway, I'm sorry. I know that's another tangent, but
It's
Well,
what we do.
what makes it worse with The Lion King is they didn't even understand the point of the songs in the story. Like none of the live action remakes, save for possibly Cinderella because they removed the songs and then
Mhm.
added one song for her, but that's beside the point. Um, any of the live action remakes that kept the songs in did not understand the point of the songs, which in a
they
musical, the songs are part of the plot.
Yes.
They
they
are
don't
actually part of
understand
the
the point
film's
of the
story.
story either. Are you familiar with Lilo and Stitch
Oh,
and
the
the live
ending of the
Yes.
action?
live action Lilo and Stitch. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh.
The live action Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch the cartoon. Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind. Big driving force of the movie is
Yes.
that
Yes.
nobody gets left behind or forgotten.
Hmm.
Lilo and Stitch live action. Uh, Lilo's sister, I don't remember her name.
Nina.
Nani.
Or Nani. Nani, yeah.
Nani decides to leave Hawaii, leaving Lilo behind. Hawaii, the place with the country's greatest marine biology institute, to go to California to study marine biology in California, leaving Lilo to live with their neighbor.
Yes.
What the hell is that?
Yes.
Makes no sense whatsoever. Completely
That's
spits in the
Disney
face of
winning.
the movie. The
That's
source
that's
material.
modern Disney. That is in their head. They cooked with that.
Well, yeah, it's because it was written by a bunch of people that left their towns to move to California, and they're essentially self-inserting. They're self-inserting themselves into this remake.
They had to do a very convoluted, like, a series of acrobatics to get out of Ohana. Uh, like it's like, oh, Ohana means family, and but also family means I need to do what's best for me.
Well, they wouldn't know
Screw
anything
you,
about
kid.
family. They're all childless and 40.
Or they're pink-haired and they cut off any sort of communication with their parents because
Mm-hmm.
their parents voted for Trump one time or something.
Well, and it was Ohana and the removal of the ugly duckling metaphor.
Yeah.
That was pivotal for Stitch.
Yes. So, like,
They took
I don't
Disney's
know.
best movie and made it objectively worse. And everything that made it worse was the stuff they added to it that wasn't in the original.
Mm-hmm.
Many such cases.
Every such case, I think.
I don't understand why they continue trying to do this with the remakes.
You know, at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, I got really excited when I saw Howard the Duck. I am so glad they did not remake Howard the Duck now. I was bummed when I found out they weren't doing it because I love that movie. I'm so happy they're keeping their dirty little paws off it.
Don't give them ideas, Rhino. I
Who
honestly know
knows?
nothing about Howard the Duck, but
Maybe Howard the Duck will come back for Doomsday.
Oh, Jesus.
are they doing Doomsday?
Yes, Doomsday is a go. It is happening.
Haven't they lost enough money?
They're hoping to, like, this will be like the final glorious chapter of the MCU before they do what Marvel and DC always do, which is try to, like, blow up the universe and start afresh.
Oh, right. They're having what's his face play Doomsday.
Robert
Robert
Downey
Downey Jr.?
Jr.
Yeah.
Yep.
How the hell are they having Robert Downey Jr. play Doomsday when he's already Tony Stark? I know Tony Stark is dead. Sorry, anyone who hasn't seen the Avengers movies.
From what I
Spoilers, I
understand,
guess, but they're like really old at this point. So
variant Tony Stark.
Of
understand what?
course.
A
The,
variant Tony Stark. A
because we
Tony
all
Tony
know
Stark
Stark
from
Loki
from
got
another
another.
good writing.
timeline.
They're going to use the Loki bullshit.
Yes. Well, either the Loki bullshit or the Doctor Strange bullshit or the Wanda bullshit. Pick your poison.
Or the Ant-Man quantum realm.
Yes.
They've got options, yeah.
Yep. But apparently it's another Tony Stark, and I think how they're getting around it is uh, I think his parents died early on, and he was adopted into the Von Doom family,
Otto
becoming Victor
von
Von Doom.
Doom. Victor Von Doom.
Yeah, Victor Von Doom.
Wasn't Doomsday? Oh, man, Wasn't he like traditionally a Fantastic Four villain?
Yes, but that's still Marvel. He's kind of an everyone villain.
No, no, and I get that, but have they introduced a canonical Fantastic Four for the
They
Marvel Cinematic
They
Universe?
did
they did, and
a
it did
couple of years
terrible.
ago.
Nobody's seen it.
I mean,
It
I
was
know that
very boring.
there was lots of different Fantastic Four movies
You don't
that have
remember
been made.
Pedro Pascal as Mr.
Oh, they're going
Fantastic?
with that?
Yeah,
Oh,
Pedro
Well, to be
Pascal
fair,
as Mr.
nobody
Fantastic.
remembers Pedro Pascal.
unfortunately, I do. I remember how he ruins everything that he touches. I'm sorry, I have Pedro Pascal fatigue. I cannot. He's just in too much. I did.
Like, we need him and Zendaya, or however you say her fucking name, and Tom Holland, and another person who they're just cramming into everything to be the Fantastic Four. It'd be perfect. It would just be the most boring thing ever.
Tom Holland's already Spider-Man. Zendaya's already MJ.
That's not stopping them. Like, is anyone really keeping up with the timeline? Even the shills are having trouble keeping it all together. So when they like rave about
Well,
it,
to
they
be
need like
fair, to be fair,
grifted guideline.
the Spider-Man thread has always been pretty consistent, and that's because Spider-Man is seen as his own thing,
Yeah,
even when he comes together with the Avengers.
yeah, because Sony technically owns Spider-Man because of old contracts.
Well,
Yes.
I actually thought that it was a pretty creative way that they did it, where um, at the end of the Far From Home or whatever,
Hmm.
I think that's what it was, the last Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. Um, at least the
No Way
last one that I
Home.
saw. No, No Way Home. No Way Home. Yeah, the
Yeah.
one that had the multiple Spider-Mans.
Yes.
Um, I thought it was pretty clever of them to have the story resolve in a way that everyone forgets about the existence of Spider-Man.
And then
Or
he
Because
just
the
goes
to
back
existence
to
me,
of Peter Parker.
or Peter Parker,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
me, that was like a clearly like this is our excuse for Sony to completely take the rights back and separate ourselves from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just do our own thing with Spider-Man.
this
Yes.
is
I'm kind of
also our
surprised they
way to
didn't do
separate
more
us
with it
from all the
since then.
damage Marvel will do if we let Marvel keep going with this.
It's so depressing, man. The first three phases, minus a couple of movies, were genuinely really good.
Phase one,
It
especially,
was
because
really
phase one,
fun.
the introductory part of it, they were trying. Like even Thor, which I think is probably the weakest of the phase one movies that I can think of, it was still a half decent movie. Like you seen what they were going for. It wasn't like offensively bad. It was just a little lackluster.
I actually liked Thor.
I
It
like
was
Thor
it was
as well.
yeah, I liked Thor partially because it was different. It was someone who had already had powers
Mhm.
just based on
Right.
who he was, on being a god, and then having those powers removed and having to regain his humanity, as opposed to the other way around of someone who is kind of the underdog and having to develop their powers and learn to be this powerful person with those responsibilities.
Right. And I would say that it is actually the Incredible Hulk that was the most lackluster of the early films.
Sony, we've had a hot Aunt May. I am available if you need a hunky Uncle Ben.
Oh my god.
My DMs are open.
Where did that come from? What? What? What?
We were talking
I
about
think he's
them getting ready to reboot the series, and I thought of Mrs. Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. They're gonna be casting soon. I figured I'd put my name out there.
I think Rhino just is hoping for an opportunity to get with hot Aunt May.
Marissa Tomei, absolutely.
I mean, they do seem to keep making her younger and younger.
Hmm.
Anyways.
I mean,
We were watching
uh,
this video.
how far are we into this? The
I clicked
recording.
ahead a lot, and we're like pretty far.
We're a little over 2 hours in.
Okay. I mean, I think we got the gist of what the tragic monster is. So,
We can
do,
finish up. There's not much left.
there's there's
Oh,
6 minutes left.
I thought it was a bit for 6 minutes. Okay, let's burn through it. I'm sure she makes some good points.
Okay.
to end in tragedy. As discussed, if you remove the danger from the tragic monster, you get a classic Quasimodo, a character who really just needs friends and support to help counter their unhappiness and the unfairness of whatever life situation they're otherwise powerless to stop. And while that might not be super workable in, say, the zombie situations where the tragic monster is incurably deadly to those around it, in some cases, that's not an unattainable goal. Consider the Hulk, a textbook tragic monster at origin who becomes a massive danger every time he feels angry or threatened, which happens a lot while being hunted down by scary men with guns. In some runs, Bruce Banner devotes a lot of time and energy to trying to
Speaking of the Incredible Hulk,
Mhm.
it's Kismet. I mean,
It's
I
been a very
don't.
long time since I saw The Incredible Hulk because I watched it once in theaters and thought that was kind of a garbage movie. I'm not interested in seeing any more of that. Um,
I don't mind Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. I
No.
think that was fine. Um,
oh, maybe I'm thinking of the one that was before Edward
you
Norton.
were thinking of Hulk.
Okay, yes, I'm thinking of Hulk.
Again, I would say the Bruce Banner in that was Eric Bana. Uh, he actually did pretty fine too. That movie is utter garbage, though. It was very experimental, I will say. The like comic book panels was very intriguing as a film concept. If you remember those happening in the movie.
I don't know.
They actually put like comic strips into the frame, and you were basically watching the different comic strips as if you were reading a comic. It was
That's a cool concept.
yeah, it
Vignettes.
was very interesting concept. Utterly garbage. It did not
Can
do
I
well.
can I ask in the MCU in um the Incredible Hulk then
Hmm.
what was what were the circumstances around him getting the gamma radiation?
He was a scientist, and I don't remember the specifics, but he was testing out the machine on himself. I
Got game.
believe, I believe it was Captain America's super soldier serum, and he was trying to replicate um, basically the serum's effects. Instead of the Vita rays from the Stark's machine, he was using gamma rays.
If he was experimenting on himself, not to get us too far down this rabbit hole again, but that doesn't sound like a lack of agency. That sounds like, I guess maybe it was a mistake. You didn't think that that's what was going to happen, but he didn't
Well,
know it was.
his lack of agency comes from the fact that he can't have his heart rate go past a certain point before the Hulk's rage takes over, and he becomes uncontrollable.
And then, with the exception of the new and not improved Banner Hulk mess, whatever that is,
Professor Hulk.
yeah, Professor
Professor.
Hulk. Once he's hulked out, he has zero control over it. He just is the Hulk for a little while. And then, like, the Hulk needs a nap or something.
The sun's getting real low. I personally love that touch from Joss Whedon. I loved that he put that in there. I was like, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Wait, is that a reference to something that I didn't realize?
Age of Ultron. Uh, Black Widow goes, sun's getting real low. And like she holds out her hand and he
Right.
does. And
Yeah.
that changes him back to Bruce Banner. Basically, they swapped out Betty Ross with Black Widow in that instance.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying.
And then they didn't go anywhere with it. They could have. I really liked that.
That's all right. Black Widow's a hussy.
I enjoyed the
me?
Black Widow movie, but was a little bit disappointed in it.
I was very disappointed in it.
I was very disappointed in it.
I genuinely, I walked out of the theater and, I went to see it with my wife, so that always makes things more enjoyable. But I walked out thinking that I had a good time, but I was really hoping that because Black Widow is a spy without any actual superpowers, that it wouldn't be a big Marvel Cinematic Universe, big explosions, high action thing, and that it would lean more into her stealth and spy skills and manipulation and like give us like a real spy thriller, almost James Bond-esque
And you
movie.
think that Shield, with the capabilities of like space travel and all this stuff, could not find the Red Room?
Have they considered it was in the sky? I mean, I don't know. The movie, I don't remember the actual plot of it. It was a shit show. I just remember I was really mad about Taskmaster, who is my favorite Marvel villain. I was pissed.
I do like Scarlett Johansson as
I do too.
Black
Oh,
Widow, though.
absolutely. Hands down.
I think it's great casting.
Yes. 100%. She deserved a much better film.
After the reaction of her showing up for the first time in Iron Man 2, she should have been booked for a film. Because you can watch her get in that boxing ring in slow motion and it will never get old. She legitimately may be one of the most attractive women alive.
Very true. I will not contest that. That is very true.
Cure the Hulk so he stops transforming into him. Hypothetically, this would undo the tragedy he had zero agency in and remove the danger and the distress at the root. But this would be a bit narratively unsatisfying, so most versions of the character will instead try a different approach, to question whether the Hulk is really so inherently bad, or if he could be a force for good in the world if Thunderbolt Ross would just stop sending scary men with guns after him for like 5 minutes. The Hulk can be, and frequently is, heroic, and it's only the fear and prejudice of humanity that forces his life to be a tragic one. There's no way for him to stop being powerful, but the danger he poses is almost entirely reactive, which means if people stop being jerks to him, he could potentially stop being a tragic monster. And if you want to know where they got that idea from, credit, as it so often does, goes straight back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Victor's creature is not born dangerous or distressed, but he quickly learns that distress is inevitable because he scares the ever-loving shit out of everyone around him, and because Victor refuses to take responsibility for him or provide him a companion so he's not forced to go
Fair. Fair that he scares, like the fear from seeing Frankenstein's monster, a bunch of people's body parts all stitched together to make this monstrosity. Fair that that's scary.
And
like, it sucks to be him, but also it sucks to look at him. So
she's specifically citing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is a very different vibe than you would think of like as your traditional movie Frankenstein. But 100% right. This Frankenstein is, I can see where she's getting the comparing the Hulk to Frankenstein, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Hulk was definitely loosely based around the concepts behind it.
Oh, well, it's much more based around Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. That I can see more. Yeah, I didn't think of it.
life alone, the creature decides it has no recourse but revenge and starts turning Victor's life into the kind of nightmare that Victor so carelessly and cavalierly inflicted on him. In the recent Guillermo del Toro movie adaptation of the same story, del Toro takes this plotline through some waypoints and to an ending that it never got in the book. The movie is overall not super interested in faithfully adapting the original story. Elements of it are fully fanfiction or derived from the old Universal monster movie aesthetics, and the del Toro bingo card is on full display. But one thing is preserved, and that is the creature is unquestionably a tragic monster. He starts off as an innocent tabula rasa, and then Victor is such a shitty awful parent that he teaches the creature pain, fear, and hatred before he ever even gets a look at the sun. Then once he gets free, he learns how much he terrifies everyone who sees him, and so the lack of agency begins to kick in. The creature never asked to be made, never asked to look like this, and since he quickly learns that in this version he can't even die, it becomes very clear that there's nothing he can do about anything. And of course, the threat. The creature is, true to form, very strong, and everyone around him is very fragile, and he does brutalize some wolves and some hunters that were already trying to kill him, but he doesn't really start doing anything intentionally scary until Elizabeth dies, which, contrary to the book version where he kills her to punish Victor, in this version is because she takes a bullet for him when Victor tries to shoot him. This is what I mean with the fanfiction and such. But in this version of the story, this is kind of the capstone on the unfair cruelty of Victor's actions. Elizabeth has spent the movie tragically out of focus, mostly because, despite her banter with Victor, he clearly doesn't actually care about her as a person, and is more just frustrated that she doesn't want to be his girlfriend. So the only real glimpses of her depth of character come through in the conversations Victor's not really listening to, and when she's bleeding out in the creature's arms. And she's not even hit the ground before Victor is yelling at everyone that the creature killed her. Everyone break out the torches and pitchforks because that monster just killed our ingenue. Victor just stone cold manslaughtered the woman he allegedly loves, and he's immediately using it as more ammunition to make everyone hurt the creature. I've gone back and forth.
Well, and that's because I believe Del Toro was playing around with who is the man and who is the monster.
Yeah. I mean, like, the whole thing of Frankenstein is you read Frankenstein and you realize Frankenstein's the monster. And then when you think about it, you realize that Frankenstein's the monster. Dr. Frankenstein is the real monster in the book.
Yes. And like this was playing that up to the nth degree, trying to make that more poignant point.
I won't call it a bad thing, because it is a very much a different retelling. So, having not seen it, I won't say that it's going to be inherently bad. And
Oh,
if anyone can make
no.
it good, Del Toro's definitely on there.
I
Put a little faith
love
in
Del
it.
Toro's Pinocchio. That's fantastic. If you have seen
Have
that.
not.
I have not.
Oh, I highly recommend it. It is very, very interesting. I do have a few gripes with the ancient beings that help Pinocchio along his way. Basically the blue fairies. But overall, I would say very good retelling.
On this a little bit, but I've come to the conclusion that it feels like the movie didn't fridge Elizabeth, Victor fridged Elizabeth. It's a tough balance.
Eh.
The fridge word.
You know,
For those at home, we had a conversation about fridging and that term before we even jumped
Just
into
before we hit record.
Just before, yeah.
I'm gonna give it to her because she did say that before in the scenes beforehand, she was out of focus and not being paid a ton of attention to. But now that she's dead, suddenly that's the highlight of everything going on. That sounds like a fridging to me.
Out of focus for Victor, though, was she given plenty of characterization to the audience?
You know, given it's Del Toro, I would say actually probably.
So I would argue that she was not fridged.
Hey, I had never heard the term fridge before we started the discussion beforehand. For the people that are listening, can one of you give a definition of fridging?
Put in the
Rhino,
comments if you think what she described was fridging or not. Let us hear your thoughts. Let the people speak.
Okay.
Vox populi.
There you go.
I just want people to be able to understand what we're saying in the podcast.
The nonsense we speak.
Maybe everyone else knows
I-
more words than me, but I was unfamiliar with the term.
I will say this: Google is available, you people.
Okay, fine. I will pull up a definition.
Why? You
It's
know
for a
Google's
writer
fake and gay.
to strike, but I think they pull it off. It doesn't feel like the movie is dismissing her value as a character. It feels like Victor is the one doing that. Anyway, this
She even says it. She even says it. I
She didn't say it
invalidated.
wasn't fridging. She just said they pull it off, as in it was done well. Fridging is
She
neutral. It's not
uses
inherently good or bad.
used the term fridging, and then she said that it didn't seem that Del Toro was minimizing her character. It was Victor who was doing that.
Fridging is
Bridging
like
is a
fantastic.
literary trope in which a character exists for the sole purpose of being killed, assaulted, or otherwise harmed in order to serve as an inciting incident that motivates another character's journey.
Now,
Read further.
hold on? Did you hear in that definition? There are no judgment qualifiers. It's like the word fantastic. Technically, it could
Rhino,
mean good or bad.
you are specifically trying to ignore reading further into the description because you did this last time and then you read further and you said, "Oh, right, you're right, Gleeman."
You were right in that instance. This could be different. Read further,
Read.
Ted. Go ahead.
Bridging is most common with female characters, but male characters can be fridged too. That's all that this definition had to say.
Okay, so what the
I
further
wasn't. I'm genuinely was not trying to start an argument. Just trying to give context for an obscure term to the people that are listening to the podcast. We don't need to get
Omnia's
into an
attorney.
argument about
I
what
rest
it
my case.
is or not.
Rhino has read the full description and he has concluded that I was right, and
In
he is
that
now trying
one
to
case about
backtrack.
that one sample that I don't remember what it was that you gave me. You
It,
gave me an
it
example and I wasn't sure, and then I read the definition and I said, yes, that fits. I agreed with you in that instance.
and in
But,
this definition, it does
huh?
not fit.
Let the
Oh
Because
people speak.
yikes! Come on, you guys.
Let the people speak in the comments. Let their voices be heard.
we shall, but I'm right.
I
This is
can't wait
what
to see the
leads to the
comments on
creature
this.
becoming actively malevolent in his pursuit of Victor, and they sort of speed run through the hunt into the Arctic and the subsequent final confrontation. But the fanfiction kicks back in, as on his deathbed, Victor does something his book version never manages to pull off. He apologizes. He realizes he was perpetuating the cycle of parental abuse on an innocent child who was relying on him to teach and protect him, and he advises the creature not to try and die, but to find a way to live. And in the end of the movie, the creature uses his terrifying strength to break the stranded ship out of its ice and float it back homewards. Del Toro's angle seems to be that the tragedy of the creature's life is not inevitable due to his innate existence, but caused by his shitty F-tier father figure who sucks. And honestly, fair. That's textually supported, and is at least a solvable problem. And this approach, the question of how much a tragic monster needs to be tragic, is
I somewhat don't want to see the movie now because I think there's something very profound about uh, the tragic circumstance of the monster. It is an unnatural being, and because it's unnatural, it will have a tragic ending. And the almost inevitability of that tragic ending makes the story hit a little bit harder.
Well, that is true, but that would be only true in the instance that it was a faithful retelling. This is Guillermo del Toro telling his own version, and she did say that he changed it up quite a bit. So
Well,
it's
no, no,
probably
no.
not objectively
I'm,
bad.
I'm, I'm just saying that I think poignance of the story, um, being faithful or not, I think the poignance is a bit stronger in its inherent value comes from the fact that this is an unnatural creature and its existence is tragic. That's
Oh, yeah.
an absolute, and therefore its ending must be tragic in of itself.
I don't think it has to be. You're right in the first half. You certainly are.
Well,
But I don't
you
think
think nothing has to be anything.
no, I'm just saying that I don't think the second half is dependent on the first. Like, the second half isn't a qualifier, or the first half isn't a qualifier that the second half has to meet. It's just because you have a tragic start doesn't mean you have to have a tragic ending. Yes, that would be poetic, but he could be going for an entirely different point. I mean, this is his version and his idea, so he might be trying to send a different message to it.
He
I
is
don't think
trying to
that it
send a different message to it. I won't argue that. Saying that it lacks the same poignancy.
I mean, you're probably right. I don't see it as a negative inherently.
I am not surprised by that.
It
Why
would
do you
be
keep I
it would
see
be
plenty of
difficult for
things as
him to pull
negative.
it off.
It
What
would.
was that, Teddy?
I said it would be difficult for him to pull it off. Changing that key uh, part of the story, that key tragedy of his being, and like the fact that there is a tragedy in his being entirely,
Hmm.
not just because he had a bad father, but because he is just a tragic being. Changing that would be difficult to pull off and maintain its quality. I haven't seen it, so I can't state as to how good or bad it is. But
Well, it also changes the very core of the story because he is no longer the tragic being. It is more of a romance, not in the like uh, typical romance that you would think of. It's a romance as in um, a romantic notion of finding being outside of the natural and becoming. You're it's removing the tragedy out of it by
If
giving it that good ending.
if that happened halfway through, I could see that being like a stronger point. But changing the very end of it to like send a different message, I don't think changes the like tragedy of the being itself because it still had that tragic life up to that point. It's just changing the message of what the being should do with that afterwards.
See, but tragedies are only tragedies because of their endings.
I don't know enough about tragedies and definitions to know whether that's actually true or not. I'll take you at your
Well,
word on that one, but because that
uh,
sounds like something you would know more than me about. But
oh,
if
well, just take any of your romances where the lovers are kept apart and they're miserable and
Mhm.
everything. As long as the lovers come together at the end and find their happy ending, it's not a tragedy. It's a romance.
Can it be both? Like I know that
Well,
sounds like a silly question, but can it be a tragedy up until the end where they ride off into the sunset?
no, no. The tragedy has to happen because of the end. It is sad when it ends.
Okay,
The
so
like
just because it is tragic does not make it a tragedy. And
Yes.
that's not me like poking at you. Like that's actually like
No, no,
the
no, no. I totally get you. I would say there can be tragic circumstances involved, but if you remove the tragic ending, the
Mhm.
ending being the key point, then it is no longer a tragedy.
Actually, thinking about it in the not the text, the circumstances of Frankenstein, that might still be true because the monster isn't the protagonist. Dr. Frankenstein is. I don't know specifically for El Toro's version because I haven't seen it,
Mhm.
asterisks all over this. But everyone has a tragic ending at the end except for the monster, but the monster isn't the protagonist. Frankenstein is. It just shows you what happens to the monster afterwards. So that might still be a tragedy because Frankenstein fucked up and died. All the bad stuff
Mhm.
still happened and he still died at the end. So we'll call that a strong maybe.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything.
I mean, is that not a valid point though? Because if Frankenstein is the not hero, protagonist, the main character, and he goes through all of these tragic things up to the point with the monster being another main character, and he dies at the end, isn't that still a tragedy because your main character died a tragic end?
I don't think so because there's another from my understanding of tragedies, it's not just that the ending has to be sad and tragic, but there's most often a sense of inevitability in it. Like it is inevitable that this sad ending is what will come. And that's what you get from the Frankenstein's monster, where his being itself is tragic because there is it is inevitable that it will end in a bad state. Like there isn't a good outcome available. Whereas if you're making your protagonist the uh, the Dr. Frankenstein,
Hmm.
Dr. Frankenstein doesn't it's not inevitable that it's going to be tragic. Dr. Frankenstein's being is not an inevitable tragedy. If it's Dr. Frankenstein as your protagonist that you're talking about, then he is fully capable and chooses the way that it goes. So I don't think that that really falls under a tragedy at that point. Or
Okay.
I don't know if it's a
Well,
hard definition
But
that it
you
has to be
see you
inevitable,
see
but
where
it's
things
it's
get kind of
very
weedy when there's moving parts.
well, I wouldn't say they get weedy. I think there are clear lines that can be drawn here. With Dr. Frankenstein in particular, I
Mhm.
would say that it is only if he holds to what might be considered his nature. In this case, his nature being the established mode that he has placed on himself. If he doesn't change uh, because of the tragic circumstances around him, I say tragic, but the ill-begotten circumstances around him. The monster killing people, him seeing the hideous nature of what he's created, and the monster's um, dissatisfaction of its own being. If he sees all of that and he doesn't care, he doesn't, or he chooses to not let that influence him and chooses to still be the scientist, to disregard everything, that would be the tragic circumstance. Um, he's choosing to stay in that state uh, because he's following, quote unquote, his nature. There's a tragedy in that.
Okay.
It still ends horribly in that respect, and the tragedy is doubly so because the monster cannot escape its own existence.
No, it is stuck that way.
Yes.
Okay.
We're
Just
almost
continue.
there. We're
Almost
almost there. We can make it.
An interesting area for writers to explore. Some tragic monsters are pretty much screwed. There's almost no way to de-tragedy a zombie, but even a lot of classical tragic monsters have been sort of narratively rehabilitated over time.
She
Back in
keeps
the
bringing up
Universal horror movie
zombies,
days, being a werewolf
and I
was
still
basically
disagree
just
with them being tragic monsters. But that's fine. I needed to. She keeps bringing them up. I think that's the third time she's mentioned zombies, and I do not see them as a tragic monster. Anyways, continue.
Poor choice, Red. Poor choice.
as bad as being a zombie, except you spend 95% of the time fully aware of the horrors you unleash when you lose control. But nowadays, werewolves are, for the most part, the hot, non-threatening monster romance option. Characters who experience unfixable tragedies and fall into villainy to cope are often extended a helping hand, a support network, hell, maybe even an actual therapist nowadays. While you still get your classic Godzillas and your universal werewolves and your victims of corrupting, irreversible changes that strip away their minds and turn them into slavering nightmare beasts, if a tragic monster is even slightly still a person in there, a lot of stories will highlight that while you may have no choice about starring in a tragedy, it is always a choice to become a monster, and it's never too late to choose otherwise. And while most of us will never get bitten by werewolves, more's the pity, all of us could still probably stand to be reminded of that once in a while, whenever burning the world to the ground starts sounding nice and tempting. So, yeah. Slipping through the cracks.
Okay. We
Hey.
made it through.
Don't choose to become a monster.
Or do. Who am I to judge? It's your life.
No, I will judge. Do not choose to become a monster. Choosing to become a monster is bad.
Eddie will judge you. I will not.
I will judge you as well.
I bet you would.
Okay, maybe a little.
You would judge.
A little, but I wouldn't tell them.
Only because you're afraid of them, because they're a monster. Which means they pose a threat. By the way, Gleeman, I did look it up.
Mm-hmm.
This video, unless it's a re-upload, is only 2 months old.
This one?
Yes. It was posted April 17th, 2026.
No excuse.
Hold on. That is what it is. Okay, hold on. You're right. There is no excuse, but there is an excuse because I was wondering as we were going through it, I'm like, when is she getting to the Mr. Freeze part? I could have swore it started way before that. This is one of her trope talks, but it was not the video I intended to grab. I'm still glad I grabbed it. I did a me. It's fair. Yuck it up. Honestly, still not a bad video, though.
All right, guys. Reload. Put the other video in. Let's start over.
Yep. Rewind. Go get another drink.
It's going to be a 6-hour podcast this week.
No, it won't. No, that's not happening.
No, it won't. No, it won't.
We will not do that.
I have work tomorrow.
Maybe we'll watch watch the one you intended another time.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
3 weeks.
What's interesting is that means that this was actually a new video for all of us rather than
yes, I have not seen this.
2 of us.
Yeah.
I largely agreed with what she had to say.
This is still no excuse.
It's very excusable.
It's not. It's not.
Like, let's be honest. I could spend, if I had a talk session, right? Like a Yap video. I could go to Ashley on X and be like, "Hey Ashley, I need a background for my Yap session." And she would make me something that looked really cool. Or I could find one of my friends who knows how to draw and be like, "Hey, I need something." And when I say kind of know how to draw, I mean with an asterisk. They could make me something that is fine for what it is, and I use that and call it a day. There's nothing wrong with either one.
I will say,
it's funny, Rhino, that you sorry, Teddy, but it's funny, Rhino, that you said both of those options, and yet you are in the AI sphere where you could simply just make yourself a better background.
I could, but maybe this person is not an AI fan. Who am I to judge? Maybe they don't. They're maybe they're a Quango and we don't know it. Who knows?
Anyway, Teddy, you were going to say.
We're really not one to talk about low production value when it comes to videos being put out. Because this podcast is the lowest production value.
Okay, so just a shameless plug from me. I have a much better background in my upcoming video for tomorrow. Well, you guys will see it before this episode comes out. So it's coming out on Tuesday. So those of you who are now our future, go and watch my past video.
And I like to think that the background that I use for my streaming with Hobbit Girl is nicer looking than this. But, I'm just saying that this podcast in particular, I don't hold very highly the level of editing that happens here. Somebody really needs to get on the editor and make sure he does the job properly this time. Stops leaving in parts that were supposed to be cut.
It's okay.
So-
It's okay.
So people watching, you have your instructions. Watch Gleeman's video, then watch this one on Friday, then go back to Gleeman's video and leave comments saying that this background is better to agitate him.
By the way, you told them to watch the video, my video, and then this video.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the end of this video, so
But
they've
they're not going to
already
see it till
watched.
Friday.
But they've already watched this video. They won't get this message from you until the end of
After
watching
they watched
this video.
this video.
Gleeman's very popular. I'm going on the assumption they've already seen it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Gleeman does big numbers. He's one of those names. Like, we don't get into
No.
that.
No,
Very
no, I'm
popular.
not. No, I'm not.
I'm
Actually,
certain some people that watch this
Have
will have
watched
already
my
seen
video.
Gleeman's video.
He's one of them takers.
So leave a
What?
comment on this video and Gleeman's video to let us know which background you prefer. Gleeman's or this one. Maybe there's some sort of charm to it that Gleeman just can't see.
Anyway,
let us know.
I actually agree with that, Teddy. I actually think it's kind of nice and kind of a, like do-it-yourself kind of way.
Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching us prattle on. As always, you can find me at youtube.com / a Gleeman. And you can also find me on X, where I post some nice little gens of myself and others. Yeah, there you have it. Rhino.
I'm Rhino. You can find me at Rhino Rocks X on X and Rhino Rocks 88 on YouTube. I do AI music and other such stuff.
And I'm TeddyGrizz, and you can find me at the YouTube channel that you're currently watching. And you can also find me on Twitch and Rumble on Thursday evenings. I stream with Hobbit Girl, my wife, my lovely wife. We hang out, we play games. I forced her to react to an AI music video this last time. Maybe we'll do more of that. Who knows? I don't plan these things too far ahead. And that's it for us this week. Thanks again for joining us, and y'all have a fantastic week. Until next time, take it easy.
Bye. Bye.
Subscribe.